The JFK files have been released. Well, at least some of them. We'll talk a bit about what has been in the files. Some of the allegations, whether or not everything that was released yesterday was all of what Biden released a couple years ago. We'll go over some of those accusations as well. And where we go from there. I still don't believe that we're going to get all of the JFK files because, well, that might implicate some people that don't want to be implicated. But we'll go over all of that and see what is available now in other news. In addition to the stories that we were not able to get to on Tuesday, new judgments have come down against the Trump admin, blocking several of the decisions that were made in the beginning of the year at the advisement of Doge. Now we're going to talk about what this means, what happens when these go to the Supreme Court, because these are lower district court judges that are striking this down, and who has the final say. So we'll go over a lot of that and where this is going. A spat of vandalism against Tesla, including a document circulating online that is doxing Tesla owners, has plagued the country, plagued the Tesla stock, and has caused general chaos to people who decided to buy them, especially several liberals who may be selling at a loss. So we'll go over what's happening with this. And a completely horrible take by Tim Walz on this one, too, given the fact that he's the governor of a state who has a large amount of its pension fund tied up in one specific company. We'll go over all that and where we go with that. And Colombia attempts to revoke degrees from people who participated in the Gaza-Israel protests last year. So we'll go over what's happening with that. Where this goes, I'm actually against a lot of my, well, I'm not MAGA, but a lot of the MAGA counterparts of myself on this one, because I think this is a pretty stupid idea. And I think it's pretty pointless at that point. But we'll go over that, what's happening with that, and where we go from that. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary, so grab some coffee. Get in the live chat, if you are not driving, of course, because no texting and driving. Find some friends, get some people in here as we find the alternative to the AM radio on your morning commute. And that's the night that the lights went out in Georgia. That's the night that they YouTube edit an innocent man. Don't trust your soul to no backwoods southern lawyer, because the judge in the town's got bloodstains on his hands. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I have to remember to go and get a glass in the mornings or in the afternoon if I'm still drinking energy drink there. Because while I do like saying the praises of Celsius because it's done well, they're not paying me to do so. So I would very much like to not be drinking out of their vessel when I'm here, and I never think about it when I come in here in the morning. Now, with next week, with us doing afternoon, it's going to be a bit of a different story. And also, we're also not doing Wednesday next week in the afternoon because something came up. I might pop on and do something in the morning, but if we actually finish the news stack on Tuesday, then there's going to be really no reason to jump back on in the morning right away. I don't know. We'll play it by ear, but we'll see. Because I mean, technically, I don't have the experiment for Wednesday as to how many people are going to be here. I think it is going to be Wednesday morning, by the way, just based on the performance that we had last week. Not ready to go to 2 days a week yet, or 3 consistently, but we're going to play it by ear and see how it goes. See how the viewership goes and the money, by the way, too. I've already made more in 1 day going morning than I had for about 4 months going at night. No, more like 6 months, because the only donations that I got at night came from Dual Helix, and that was way back in the beginning when I switched to just all nights and then 1 day a week. So if you want 2 days, we got to get some money flowing. We got to make it offset somewhere, or we just have to have that much news coming in. But we'll see what happens with that. Also, do feel free to go and watch over on Twitch. The ads help, and of course, your donations help over there. Get about half of whatever that you donate, including your Amazon Prime donation if you do, or as Quest Fanning has done before, throw a little bit of money at the Rumble. I don't know how to cash that out, and I know I've got to be at least to $50, but every little bit is appreciated as well. Always love the help. Always, 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 always do. Let's check in with the live chat here with what we got going on before we get started here. I know that Palm is over here first. Vaughn got a pair of ads in a row, unfortunately. Or fortunately, because, hey, ads are like 10 cents a pop for me. So 5 cents is 5 cents. No, it's 10 cents. 10 cents and 10 cents. So I get 10 cents for every ad that you watch. Or you can just do the Prime, or as you've said, you could probably walk it right up to my house and hand it off if you wanted to do a donation there. Bong says, Ed did not use my title idea. I did not. I was trying to find like a movie line or something, and afterwards I'm thinking, like, was there anything memorable about the judge from My Cousin Vinny? Because I bet you that would work too. Yeah, I was trying to find something pop culture-y from a movie or a song that would have gone well here. I thought about using the Reba McEntire song, the one that I quoted in the song lyric at the beginning, based on the fact that it talked about the judge in the town having bloodstains on his hand, but like, only one of these stories actually has the potential for some sort of bloodshed off of this. The rest of them are all financial stuff. So I don't know that would be quite... I think that would be a little bit hyperbolic for me to use that one here. But hey, anyway, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hi. How are you? It's Thursday. I'd like to see if we can pull a good 20 people at peak again, because that'll give me some data to work with here. And then yes, next week we go to, I haven't decided what time, but I'm thinking like 2 in the afternoon, just to see if more people will tune in on the afternoon commute. It's a lot of fun for me to come out here and just see the numbers pop up, and see some of the donations pop in as well too. And I know it almost felt like I was talking to an empty room, and I got way more on the replay when I was going at 6 p.m. because, as we said, most of you guys had dinner going on here. But yeah, we're still doing the grand experiment to see when the best time is to get the most viewers on this channel, to get the most eyes on me, and to get this spread far and wide. So participate if you can. Do not text and drive, please, because if you are using this as the alternative to the AM radio, you probably have your kids in the car, and I don't want to see them get hurt, and I don't want to see you get hurt either. You can't watch if you are hurt, so there is that avenue to things as well. And yeah, that's part of the reason I'm doing this, because the biggest times for news and political talk are at 7 to like 9 a.m. Central Time, while the AM radio is on. People are going back and forth on the morning commute, or between like 2 and 5 p.m. Central Time as well, when people are going home on their afternoon commute. And, well, you can listen to the AM radio and have about 8 minutes of talk, followed by 15 minutes of commercials, 4 times an hour, or you can listen to me. Get a couple ads at the top of the stream if you're watching over on the Twitch side. Help me out a little bit and not have to hear an ad for the rest of the time. And, as promised, when we started doing this in the morning on Wednesday, I am making a concerted attempt to clean up the language. I have slipped a couple times. I know that you probably have your kids in the car. They're probably going to learn the words in the public school, but they're not going to learn them from me. So, since this is no longer a late night show, we're not going to treat it like a late night show. So, anyway, we've got a lot of stuff going on here. Let's get started. We've got a sweared over on Kick. How's stream going? We're just getting started. We're selling the wares. And yes, selling the wares, of course. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as the Daily Ignoramus. Reminder to myself that I need to text Steven and let him know that I want to get him on the pod at some point here, get that recorded, because that's going to be an interesting conversation. I want to put some feelers out to a couple other people, too. Because, again, I don't want to just be with and have conversations with political people. Unfortunately, for my online presence, that's the majority of people that I know, where I have their number, I can text them and ask them to come on, because of what I've done for the last 6 years. But there are other people. That girl Emily that I had on the very first episode, I want to get her on and talk about spina bifida again, and raising a kid with it, because I think that'd be a fascinating conversation for a lot of you guys out there. There are a couple of musicians I want to reach out to and see if I can get them back on. I want to start maybe cycling out some people that I've had on before. I want to try and put some distance between some of the people that I've had on before. I unfortunately don't want this to be like Ed's World, where it was just a rotation of the same 7 guests over and over again. But we'll figure it out. I know it's a lot of fun to come back out and do this. But anyway, we've done a lot of this. Go check out the Daily Ignoramus with Stephen Ignoramus. Go check out Overruled with Katie Z. That was a great conversation, by the way, on Ed Talk 2 with Katie Z. If you haven't heard it already, go back and listen to this. You can listen to this on the audio platform, usually about a day after I'm done with this. So go check that out. Let's get started with the news for the day. Get my news scene up here and let's get started. Kaboom. So, the first thing we're going to do on this is we're going to talk about Israel and the Houthis. I don't have a lot of news on this right now, just based on the fact that we covered a lot of this on Tuesday. There's going to be some developments, and I think we're going to cover a lot more of it on Tuesday. And by the way, if we get back up to going 2 days a week on Contemporary, because the news cycle demands it, and it's okay with my better half, if we get back up to that point, I'm probably going to do a foreign policy and then a domestic policy. One day, one the other day. Hopefully that means that I'll actually get better at foreign policy, because that's kind of my weak point. But for right now, we're still going to try to do it for once a week. All right. From Fox News to start with, Israel shoots down Houthi ballistic missile after ceasefire collapses. So, yes, we talked about this last week, where the Gaza ceasefire has collapsed at this point, meaning that, yes, there is active munition going, well, basically from the Israel side of the line to the Gaza side of the line. There's not a whole hell of a lot going back, because most of that's been decimated at this point. But there's quite a bit of it going out there, and yes, the Yemenis have gotten involved at this point. Let's read. This is from Stephen Sarace and Trey Yinks over at Fox News. Get the Rumble chat back up here, because Fanning is over there for us. I might have to dip in and out, as what I'm working on is a bit intense. It's probably intense like a camping trip, by the way. Alright. The Israeli military said it intercepted ballistic missiles launched by Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen on Tuesday, the terror group's first attack in the Jewish state, following the collapse of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The Israeli Defense Force confirmed that sirens sounded in South Israel after a missile launched from Yemen. The Israeli Air Force said it intercepted the missile before it crossed into Israeli territory. The Donald is ordering U.S. strikes against the Houthis in Yemen over the weekend is believed to have deterred the terror group from resuming an attack on Israel sooner with greater volume, IDF sources told the Jerusalem Post. Nearly 250,000 people were sent to bomb shelters across the central and southern desert Negev region as a precaution due to the shrapnel from the interception. Tuesday, Fox News has learned. The Houthi attack came hours after the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas crumbled over what U.S. officials said was the terror organization's refusal to release more Israeli hostages. There are still 59 hostages in Gaza, but Israel believes only 24 of those who remain are alive. I'd actually be a little bit surprised if the number was that high. I'm not trying to Debbie Downer this one or anything else like that. I understand what happens in war and the fact that these hostages have been there for well over a year at this point. Remember, this was October of 23 that this all popped off. October 7th, 2023. It is now March of 2025. We've been going at this for almost a year and a half at this point. Next month will mark a year and a half. I don't have any reason to believe that any of them are still alive at this point. And I'm going to be completely honest about that. Israel bombarded the Gaza Strip on Tuesday, eliminating the head of Hamas government and other key terrorist leaders. Hamas, Pom. That's what we were talking about in the truck. I knew it started with an H. No, I'm sorry. I said Hamas. The one in Lebanon has a different name, and it also starts with an H. Because there's Hezbollah. Oh, it is Hezbollah. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi are the big key players in this. At least 404 Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed in the Israeli airstrikes so far, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. The death toll has not been independently verified, and it probably never will be. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with security officials in the Kriya, Israel's version of the Pentagon, on Tuesday during the airstrikes. Interesting, and I don't typically cite other creators when I talk about this kind of stuff, but one of the things that came up, I'm a regular listener of Styx. I'm a clanker myself. I'm a regular listener there, and he brought up the fact that, and he's right, this is not the first time we've had to deal with this, with Israel and a ceasefire. I mean, there have been 4 of them in my lifetime. I can clearly remember 2, and I remember in 6th grade we were talking about this. About Israel and the ceasefire that was going on between them and the Palestinians at that time, with a PLO being big in the news, and it sticks out in my memory because, you know, I was 6th grade, what was I, 12 at the time? 12 or 13 maybe? Anyway, I'm so young, but I'm starting to grasp more cognizant parts of the world and foreign policy as well. I'm moving beyond my math and physics bubble that I've been so good with and starting to actually see. And I remember, well, I remember a lot of things, but I remember being young and our social studies teacher talking about Yasser Arafat, and I thought that was just the way that the Israelis, another funny story about that, by the way, from that same period, the Israelis that was their salute to their prime minister at the time. Yes, sir, Arafat. That's legitimately what I thought when I first heard that name. But I also, stupidly, at that age, because I hadn't heard anything on the news at that point about the Israeli government and the struggle that was going on with there. I was learning this for the first time in my social studies class. That I tried to correct the social studies teacher and say, I think it's Israelite, because of, well, what I learned in church. Because that's what the pastor said, was Israelite. I didn't know Israeli was the actual demonym for them. Anyway, that's enough of the history for me. Let's see. Israel will, from now on, act against Hamas with increasing military strength, Netanyahu's office wrote in a series of posts on X as the airstrikes commenced. So, and they're shooting across a pretty broad swath too at that point. Let's do the Mogwai's favorite thing. Let's go pull up the map. East. Let's do that. On the map. open-end maps. Might do some reading on the history of the Middle East later on too. I love that kind of stuff now. It's weird, when I was in actual history classes, I didn't like it very much. I love it now. I want to know where all these countries came from, going all the way back, like 5,000 years. I learned about the Holy Roman Empire. I actually talked about that with Anavoltus when he was on. My first learning that the Holy Roman Empire wasn't here. It was here. From talking to somebody who's lived in both of those places. Alright, so I brought up the Middle East map just to remind you kind of the fire that the Yemenis are playing with. Now, of course, they pretty much control the shipping lane at this point. A lot of commercial vessels are coming back around the Horn of Africa to get around the terrorism that's going on in the Red Sea at this point. But you got two choices. If you are going to take a crack at Israel from Yemen, you can either go through the Red Sea and run the risk of running into a U.S.-flagged naval vessel that probably has you outgunned 17-1, or you can launch missiles, cruise missiles, over one of our allies. For whatever reason, I don't think that's going to turn out quite well for you either. So that is where we go with that. Map is over. That's all I'm going to touch on for foreign policy today, because we did so much of it yesterday. Let's talk about the JFK files from the USA Today. Trump releases classified JFK files on assassination. Here's what they say. Now, we do not have all of the files at this point. One thing to keep in mind as we go with that. This is from Josh Meyer. Full disclosure, I am reporting on this having not read the files. There's like 80,000 pages, and I just found out about it at like 11 o'clock last night. Robbie reposted a post from me. Captain Kofefe. Thank you, Robbie, over on X, by the way. President Trump's admin on Tuesday began releasing what it said were all of the government's classified files on the '63 assassination of President John F. Kennedy, making potentially tens of thousands of pages of unredacted records available to the public for the very first time. Now, before we go any further into this, I first have to admit that if this is true and I have not read these, then I was wrong. I made a very funny joke about it. I made a very funny joke that got a lot of traction. Showed that a lot of people do not have a lot of sense of humor about anything on X, because I thought that it was just going to be black line, 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 and that's who killed JFK. I think I can find the meme of that one again. Oh, is it in here? Am I going to be able to find it again? I googled it the last time I picked it up. It's in my phone, but that doesn't help now, especially since my phone is streaming to Instagram. No, I'm not going to see it. It's not anywhere up to the top. Lame. Then I have to go through my phone again. And I should have looked this up and got this up in the Discord's webpage before I did this. I should have thought of this last night. I am unprepared. I've come unprepared. The release of the files comes after Trump signed a Day 1 executive order in January aimed at fully releasing government documents related to the assassinations of Kennedy, his brother and presidential candidate Senator RFK Sr., and civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr. The contents of the documents, and whether any previously unreleased information was in them wasn't immediately clear. Historians quickly said they would need time to assess the flood of files to understand if they were significantly different from previous releases. So far, nothing in the documents has changed the long-held findings that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in deleting Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. I do have to carefully walk around some of the ways that I say some of these things because of YouTube's AI algorithms. While then president, rode in a motorcade in Dallas. If you're interested in comedy and historical comedy, especially if you have seen the Netflix series Umbrella Academy. The second season of that focuses on being in the 60s and the 6 kids trying to prevent the JFK assassination, or actually fighting whether or not you are supposed to be trying to prevent it. It's an interesting series, that's for sure. That one I will promote. I've done that one on things that I like before. Looking to read the JFK files yourself, you can find them on the National Archives website here with a link. Most of the files are scans of documents, and some are blurred or have become faint or difficult to read in the decades since Kennedy's assassination. Right. There are also photographs and sound recordings, mostly from the 60s. A report from Russia, Oswald was a lousy shot. One document dated November 20th, 1991 appears to be a teletype of U.S. intelligence reporting on Lee Harvey Oswald, his time in the Soviet Union, his stormy relationship with his Soviet wife, and his apparently poor marksmanship. The document says a KGB official named Nikonev reviewed files from the featured Soviet security service, the KGB, to determine if Oswald had been a KGB agent. Reuters reported that the document cited a report from the American professor named E.B. Smith, that's Echo Bravo Smith, who reported he had talked in Moscow about Oswald with a KGB official, Slava Nikonev, who said he reviewed 5 thick files about the assassination to determine if he had been a KGB agent. Nikonev is now confident that Oswald was at no time an agent controlled by the KGB, the document says. Got some help behind me. Thank you. From the description of the Oswald in the files, Nikonev doubted that anyone could control Oswald, but noted that the KGB watched him closely and constantly while he was in the USSR. That's back in the USSR. You don't know how lucky you are. Back in the USSR. I think the Beatles are overrated, and yet they have been on this program through my voice 3 times in the last week. Just saying. Documents touch on Lee Harvey Oswald's theories. Some of the documents also include references to various conspiracy theories suggesting that Oswald left the Soviet Union in '62 intent on assassinating the popular young president. Department of Defense documents from '63 cover the Cold War of the early '60s and the U.S. involvement in Latin America trying to thwart Cuban leader Fidel Castro's support of communist forces in other countries. I can hear so much of Dale Gribble's voice when I'm reading this here, especially when, I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of King of the Hill, but in, I think it was the second or third season, when Dale Gribble was being just insanely insufferable about his mower. And they stole his mower. And they hid it in Hank's garage. Because he went and got the brand new Mason. And then they started leaving early photoshopped photos behind. One of them was Lee Harvey Oswald on Dale's mower. Now, the Castro thing does too, because the first theory that Dale concocted was that Fidel Castro stole my mower. He's using the engine to power his one-man escape sub. But then later on in the episode, you see him, he's clearly not slept for like 2 or 3 days at this point. He's jittery, he's looking at these photos. Oswald My mower. Grassy knoll. It's great. I love it. Let's see. Let's see. The document suggests that Castro would not go so far as to provoke a war with the United States or escalate to the point that would seriously and immediately endanger the Castro regime. It appears more likely that Castro might intensify his support of subversive forces in Latin America, the document reads. Do one more on this because this is the live feed off this one. We'll go on to the next article. What did the experts initially say about the JFK files? James Johnston, author of Murder Incorporated, the CIA under John F. Kennedy, told the USA Today that he wasn't expecting any bombshells, given that virtually all the relevant agencies, including the CIA, had promised to turn over everything they had years ago to the National Archives in '88. If it was going to embarrass the agency or tell a different story, they wouldn't have turned them over to the National Archives in the first place, said Johnston, who was a staff member of the Congressional Church Committee that investigated the CIA in 1975. Well, realistically, though, too, part of the issue with that is when you sit in here and, I mean, all these government agencies, one hand washes the other. So even if it is a congressional committee investigating the CIA, it's still a matter of, hey, we investigated ourselves and we found that we did nothing wrong. It's funny how that works. Oh, why is that over on that screen? Let's move that. And if they were withholding them before, I'm guessing they would continue to withhold them. Johnston cited one particular document that he knows exists, but he says hasn't been turned over to the National Archives. The first one-on-one conversation between LBJ and CIA director at the time, John McCone, right after Johnson took office after Kennedy's assassination. LBJ killed Kennedy. Another King of the Hill reference. McCone was long suspected of withholding information from the Warren Commission, the panel Johnston created to investigate Kennedy's murder. According to Philip Shannon, author of A Cruel and Shocking Act, The Secret History of the Kennedy Assassination. Is this live? Is this where it's supposed to be? I don't know. McCone was kept on as CIA director by Johnson and pledged full cooperation with the commission, which was led by Chief Justice Earl Warren. Sheen wrote in a 2015 Politico article about his book's findings. He testified that the CIA had no evidence to suggest Oswald was part of any conspiracy, foreign or domestic, but rather a former Marine and self-proclaimed Marxist who acted as a delusional lone wolf. They're always lone wolves when it involves something that the CIA doesn't really want you to know, aren't they? The depiction of Oswald was ultimately adopted by the Warren Commission in its final report, but years later, Sheenan said that the CIA itself acknowledged that McCone had withheld information from the Commission investigators. I would like to go down and see that plaza at some point. I know I've talked to Harvey McLeod on that one because she lives somewhere in that area. But I want to go see this for myself and see if the wind direction could have affected things, if you even could have gone in that direction. Because I've heard a lot of the theories. That's one of the first conspiracy theories that I was actually ever familiar with. But it's one of those things where I can sit down and read the Warren Report cover to cover, which I have, and I can read all the online conspiracy theories, but there's really no way of really knowing unless you're actually there, if you're standing in the plaza. So, let's keep going from NPC News. Latest batch of JFK assassination documents show Kennedy's distrust of the CIA. Huh. JFK and I have something in common. From Corky Simasco. The newly released tranche of documents on the assassination of JFK includes a memo that for decades helped fuel speculation that the CIA was somehow involved in the killing of the president. Known as the Schlesinger Memo, the 15-page document, dated June 10, 1961, was written by JFK's aide Arthur Schlesinger. It warned Kennedy that the CIA was encroaching on his ability to direct foreign policy. The memo's existence was not a secret, and it was made public earlier, but with large chunks of text blacked out for security reasons. Maybe I did call this. And again, I haven't read the report yet. I haven't read the 80,000 pages yet. I'm interested. The entire unredacted memo is one of the thousands of now declassified documents that the National Archives and Records admin released Tuesday on orders from President Trump. As of Wednesday, 69,000 of the 80,000 documents Trump promised to release have been posted online. And if anybody was expected to find proof on the memo that the CIA conspired with JFK's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, to kill Kennedy, they will not find it. That doesn't mean for a second that that won't be the top conversation on 4chan for the next 70 years. Can you imagine if 4chan lasts that long? The information the government had blacked out had to do with CIA staffing, including the specific number of CIA operatives stationed at the U.S. Embassy in Paris and how they sought to monopolize contact with certain French political personalities, as well as the number of CIA sources in countries like Austria and Chile. And again, I've got to come back and go over my Warren report again, but I'm a little confused as to why that would be in the JFK report, because this happened in Dallas. Jefferson Morley, a former Wisconsin Post reporter who runs the JFK Facts blog, has been pressing the government for decades to release the records, was undeterred. There's a sensational story here that people need to know, Morley said in an MSDNC interview. This is a nothing burger, as people will tell you. There's an amazingly interesting and pregnant story in those JFK files. The memo and other documents are more evidence that Kennedy deeply mistrusted the CIA, which had Oswald under surveillance long before Kennedy was killed on November 22nd, 1963, Morley said. We got a memo yesterday about Kennedy's plans to reorganize the CIA, and a lot of that memo had been redacted before, Morley said. We now understand why Kennedy mistrusted the CIA, and a mistrust, not to be sure, that was returned by CIA officers who did not like his liberal policies. We're in an interesting position with the fact that Trump released the documents, especially the ones that are showing that Kennedy, the subject, had a deep distrust of the CIA because, as a lot of us who have been active politically for the last decade at this point, God, has it been that long? My God, this is exhausting. But for the last decade, the Donald himself has a deep distrust of the CIA. And I mean, a part of me has to wonder, and we'll have to see what's in these documents, if he's doing this as almost a set of self-preservation. Because, I mean, if the report is true, and what the Orange Man says on the TV is all true, then he's got the same distrust for the CIA, and they've got the same distrust for him. And, I mean, could this be a part of... Okay, I'm going to put this out there, because Kennedy had a deep distrust of the CIA, and I think they're going to try to kill me, your favorite president. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that, as wild as this political world has been, if you told me that that's what happened, I'd believe you. It wouldn't even be the craziest thing that's happened this week. Under the President JFK Assassinations Records Collection Act of '92, all the documents related to the assassination were supposed to have been released by 2017, when Trump was president the first time. Trump released some documents then, but also gave the intelligence agencies more time to assess the remaining files. It was not until December 22 that Biden released more than 13,000 records after the Mary Farrell Foundation, the country's largest nonprofit repository of JFK assassination records, sued the admin to make all of them public. Morley, who is affiliated with the foundation, said that in all the documents, we see a new window into the CIA's pre-assassination surveillance of Lee Harvey Oswald. So, that is where we are at with that. Let's grab one from the USA Today, briefly. Any bombshells in the JFK files release what we've learned. From Josh Meyer and Joel Shannon. Americans anticipating the huge release of newly redacted documents on Tuesday about the 63 assassination of JFK got at least some of what they were expecting, but experts say it will take them time to sort out the importance of the most recent information dump. Like I said before, 4chan is already on it. The U.S. National Archives and Records admin says it released about 63,000 pages across more than 2,100 PDFs, a stunning volume of information for historians and amateur sleuths to comb through. Much of it, if not most, the information has been released by prior admins in at least partially redacted or blacked out form to protect the names of CIA assets and other sensitive information. Among the unanswered, how much previously unreleased or unredacted information is contained in the documents, and how long will it take for historians to assess the flood of files? Trump's admin signaled the release would include a huge trove of unredacted records available to the public for the first time. So far, nothing in the documents has changed the long-held findings that Oswald acted alone in assassinating Kennedy on November 22, 1963, while then President rode in his motorcade in Dallas. Here's what to know. While an initial review of the papers didn't contain any shocking revelations, the documents do offer a window into the climate of fear at the time surrounding U.S. relations with the Soviet Union, shortly after the Cuban Missile Crisis of '62 nearly led to a nuclear war, aka the events of X-Men First Class. That's one of the few I have seen. Many of the documents reflected the work by investigators to learn more about assassin Lee Harvey Oswald's time in the Soviet Union and track his movements in the months leading up to Kennedy's assassination in Dallas. The National Archives set up a page dedicated to the March 18, 2025 release. You can find the page on the National Archives website, which this article, I'm going to throw this in the Discord right now. So if you guys do want to go look through it, the link is about a third of the way down the page. I'm getting DMs over here. Alright, let's come back out here. Let's put this in articles. Bam! There you go. So they got the highlighted link and the page if you guys want to go back and see what it is that they're showing. When releasing the documents, the Trump admin and the NARA didn't unredact the files in a way that allows for keyword searches using OCR or optical character recognition. I can't search these new JFK files. I hear your cry, Morley said in a post on X on Wednesday. But fear not, fellow researchers. The Mary Farrell Foundation is coming to your rescue. So, hopefully they'll be searchable at some point here. Some of the things that are already starting to come out of this one here, with highlights on them. Dr. Simon Godek. Uncomfortable truth. JFK wanted to strip the CIA of its autonomy, force APAC, which is formerly AZC, to register as a foreign agent, which they should be. I mean, they're literally foreign. Block Israel's nuclear ambitions and challenge the Federal Reserve's grip on U.S. currency. Godek, not me, is saying this next part, and I'm quoting him, "That's why he was assassinated." I haven't read the documents to make that determination yet. But if you're listening on the audio platform, I've got this up on the page, which I will throw this one in the Discord as well. Submit the following views. As one who worked in C5S during the war and served as a periodic CIA consultant in the 3 years prior, on balance, CIA's records have probably been very good. Let's see. I don't want to go read this word for word at this point, but because there's a lot of it here. On balance, CIA's record has probably been very good in the nature of clandestine operations. The triumphs of an intelligence agency are unknown. All the public hears about, or should hear about, are its errors. But again, in the nature of this case, as agency dedicated to the clandestine activity can afford damned few visible errors, the important thing is to recognize today, in my judgment, is that the CIA was at present named, constituted. This is really hard to read too, by the way. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. I can. There we go. Ho ho, that's easier. Its margin for future error is practically non-existent. One more CIA debacle will shake faith considerably in U.S. policy, at home as well as abroad, and until CIA is visibly reorganized, it will, as in the Algerian instance, be widely blamed for developments of which it is wholly innocent. The argument of this memorandum is that CIA's trouble can be traced to the autonomy with which the agency has been permitted to operate, and this autonomy is due to 3 main causes: an inadequate doctrine of clandestine operations, an inadequate conception of the relationship between operation and the policy, and an inadequate, and it goes on from there. Page ends at that point. But yes, the autonomy was being challenged. American Council for Judaism, telegram from the Department of State in Israel. Department of State to the embassy in Israel were concerned with disturbing effects on world stability, which would accompany the development of a nuclear weapons capability by Israel. Honestly, I'm not real thrilled about that myself, but Executive Order 11,110. Issued by Kennedy on June 4th, 63. This executive order amended EO 10,289, dated September 17th, 1951, by delegating to the Secretary of the Treasury the President's authority to issue silver certificates under the Thomas Amendment of the Agricultural Adjustment Act. As amended by the Gold Reserve Act, the order allowed the Secretary to issue silver certificates, if any were needed, during the transition period under Kennedy's plan to eliminate silver certificates and use Federal Reserve notes. So, lots of stuff there. Let's drop this one in the Discord as well. Ba-bam! Alright. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know if these are linked, because, again, found this one at 10 o'clock last night, so don't completely know what happened with this one here, but on the day that we get the JFK files, apparently there's an incident at the CIA headquarters. From Box 5, Washington, D.C., suspect surrenders in CIA headquarters barricade incident. From Sylvia, I don't even know how to begin to read that last name. For those of you on the audio platform, Mike Papa, Hotel, Oscar, Foxtrot, Echo. There are 6 letters in that name, and 4 of them are consonants. The brief, a reported barricade incident at the CIA headquarters, prompted a large police presence in McLean. I've been to McLean. I put gas in my truck in McLean. According to the Fairfax County Police, the suspect surrendered after successful negotiations. This remains an ongoing investigation. The longer form, a suspect is now in custody following a barricade incident at CIA headquarters in McLean, Virginia, according to Fairfax County Police. The barricade incident lasted for over 5 hours and ended with the suspect surrendering to Fairfax County Police negotiators. So, are they going to explain what happened? What did he do? Barricade the door and hold himself in? In a building where a lot of people have guns because they're federal agents? That doesn't seem smart. During the time of the incident, there appeared to be SWAT team, Arlington County, and Fairfax County officials on the scene gearing up along with other officials gearing down. A bomb squad also appeared to be on the scene as well, although it was unconfirmed if there was a bomb in the area. According to the Fairfax County Police, Dolly Madison Boulevard was shut down in both directions between Georgetown Park and Seville Lane because of the barricade incident. It appears the roadways have since reopened. What we don't know, a CIA spokesperson shared a statement on the incident. Read the full statement below. There's an ongoing incident that law enforcement is currently responding to outside the CIA headquarters. Additional details will be made available as appropriate. That is a very informative statement. What we don't know, Fox 5's David Kaplan reported the presence of drones and a helicopter in the area that appeared to be surveying the area. Kaplan also noted the officials appeared to be staging. The nature of the barricade incident has yet to be explained. So, no, they're not going to tell us what happened. Awesome. Okay. So, that's what we have there. Now, because of the title of today's episode, now we get to go talk about the judges. And we're going to start with a brief snippet from our friends over at NPR. NPR is never printing reality, but they need our money, comrade. So, hit that donate button. That's right. They're only 10% government funded, and the ad revenue is not high enough because people like me continue to use an ad blocker on there. So hit that donate button because they can't tell you that Elon man bad unless they have the funding from you, our comrade. Because it's not your money, it's our money. NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. This is a blurb on their live feed, of course, from Up First, Musk and Doge. Violated the Constitution, judge says. Top story. Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency likely violated the Constitution when they effectively shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development. A federal judge has ruled. President Trump is promising to appeal the decision. To which point I actually say that he probably should. Because I did some digging into this after a friend of the show, Clint Russell, posted on X that this is probably actually constitutional upon further review. A couple dozen USAID employees sued Musk and Doge, saying they didn't have the authority to shut down the agency as Musk is not an appointed agency head. No shit, Sherlock! No. Everybody knows that Musk cannot shut down anything. It's an advisory commission. He can come in and say, oh, look, Mr. President, we've searched through this, and we've found that there's some wasteful spending going through this. You have to make the decision. Here's our findings, and we're going to make them public on X, even though we still don't have any receipts. U.S. District Judge Theodore Schwang wrote a 68-page opinion, blocked Musk from further U.S. aid shutdowns, and ordered Doge to reinstate access to emails and other electronic systems for current staff. The ruling doesn't restore the work USAID was doing before, as humanitarian and developmental assistance programs are still cut. So let's read a bit more about this one. Judge finds Elon Musk and Doge's shutdown of USAID likely unconstitutional. From Melissa Quinn. A federal judge on Tuesday found that Elon Musk and the White House's Department of Government Efficiency likely violated the Constitution when they unilaterally acted to shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development. District Judge Theodore Chuang ruled in favor of a group of more than 24 unnamed current and former USAID employees and contractors who had challenged the efforts to shutter USAID, which were mounted by Doge and Musk, a senior White House advisor who President Trump has said is the leader of the task force. Joan granted in part their request for a preliminary injunction and said the 68-page decision that Doge and Musk likely violated the Constitution's Appointments Clause and separation of powers. The funny part is that he actually probably didn't. We'll go over that a little bit more. It'll be a ruling on where the actual authority falls, mostly. He ordered Musk and the task force to reinstate access to email, payment, and other electronic systems to all current USAID employees and personal services contractors. The judge also prevented Doge and Musk from taking any action related to the shutdown of USAID, including placing employees on administrative leave, firing USAID workers, closing its buildings and bureaus or offices, and deleting the contents of its website or collections. And again, it's an advisory committee. They don't actually have the authority to do so. So I'd have to actually see evidence that they did so, they themselves. Because I've yet to see that. To deny plaintiff's Appointments Clause claim solely on the basis that on paper, Musk has no formal legal authority relating to the decisions at issue, even if he's actually exercising significant authority on governmental matters, would open the door to an end run around the Appointments Clause, Chuang wrote. He continued, if a president could escape Appointments Clause scrutiny by having advisors go beyond the traditional role of White House advisors who communicate the president's priority to agency heads, and instead exercising significant authority throughout the federal government so as to bypass duly appointed officers, the Appointments Clause would be reduced to nothing more than a technical formality. And again, I don't necessarily know that Doge did fire the USAID employees, because it's an advisory commission. Norm Eisen, the executive chair of the State Democracy Defenders Fund, which brought the case on behalf of the 26 USAID employees and contractors, said the ruling is an important victory against Musk and Doge. They're performing surgery with a chainsaw instead of a scalpel, harming not just the people USAID serves, but the majority of Americans who count on the stability of our government. Wait. We have stability in our government? When did that happen? I've been alive since 1984, and I don't remember there ever being stability in our government. He said in a statement, "This case is a milestone in pushing back on Musk and Doge's illegality." USAID was one of the first agencies that came under scrutiny by Doge as part of Trump's sweeping plan to shrink the size of the federal government. Soon after the president returned to a second term, the agency, which was established in 1961, became subject of a 90-day pause on foreign assistance funding that was devastated nonprofits, businesses, and aid groups that received grants and other awards from USAID. Doge team members also gained access to the agency's financial and personnel systems, and hundreds of USAID officials were placed on administrative leave. Its website was shut down last month, email accounts deactivated, and USAID's Washington, D.C. headquarters were occupied by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Also a little bit weird to me, because I don't think that the department would have its purview. Now, Doge itself does not have the authority to go back and shut this down, but the administrative branch does, and part of the ruling, at least the way that the left-wing paid shills on X are putting this out and pointing this out, is that Donald Trump has no authority to do anything with the USAID because it's a congressionally founded department. But it's actually not. And I mean, again, we'll go to Wikipedia because it's good enough for term papers, but also because it's often edited by left-wingers to give us a certain narrative. And even they're going to come back out and point out what I'm pointing out with this one. So, U.S. Agency for International Development is an independent agency of the U.S. government responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance. Established in 1961 by JFK to unite several foreign assistance organizations and programs under one agency, statute law places USAID under the direct authority and policy and guidance of the Secretary of State. There's point one. Let's see. This is where I wanted to go with this, by the creation. I think there was one more part in this that I wanted to go over. No, it's right here. Congress passed the Foreign Assistance Act on September 4th, 1961, which reorganized U.S. foreign assistance programs and mandated the creation of an agency to administer economic aid. So they have the mandate that there be an agency, but they actually didn't create this agency. It's a legal gray area right now, and, well, we're probably going to get a Supreme Court case that makes the decision on whether or not it is in the purview of Congress or the executive branch to open it up, shut it down, or assess funds with it. Let's keep reading here. The goal of this agency was to counter Soviet Union influence during the Cold War and advance the U.S. soft power. Through socioeconomic development, USAID was subsequently established by the executive order of President JFK, who sought to unite several existing foreign agency assistance organizations and programs under one agency. Congress established USAID as a functionally independent executive agency with Foreign Affairs Reform and Restructuring Act of 1998, which gave the president 60 days to abolish or reorganize USAID. During that time, Bill Clinton, Slick Willie, reorganized USAID and retained its independence from the Department of State. Congress authorizes USAID's programs in the Foreign Assistance Act, which Congress supplements through directions in annual funding appropriations acts and other legislation. As an official component of U.S. foreign policy, USAID operates subject to the guidance of the President, Secretary of State, and the National Security Council. So, why did we read this? It means that there's 2 points of purview with this. Now, the way that I've interpreted this, and I am not a Supreme Court justice, so my word is not binding from this, is that, yes, this is an executive branch department, which means it falls under the purview of the executive branch. It was created by executive order. It was created by executive order under a mandate from Congress, but it was still created by executive order, which means, yes, the president gets the final say on what happens with the money, where it goes, and what it does. Now, the appropriations by Congress does make this a little bit sticky at this point. And I'm not 100% sure how separation of powers would square that circle. It's going to be an interesting talk. I can come back out and say that. DECA is here to support the morning stream. Good morning, DECA. Must be out of meetings for the day. When's the turtle, DECA? When do we find our turtle buddy? If you're not in the know, you should be in the know. Alright, we gotta keep going. So this actually was community noted, and I wanted to put it in here because of the community note. Not necessarily the X itself. Breaking, the Supreme Court just sided with Trump, blocking the lower court's order forcing Trump to give aid to foreign countries, which, according to the community note, has not happened. But we're going to go back and grab this. So, readers added context they thought people might want to know. The Supreme Court has issued no decision overturning the lower court ruling and has made no notification that it would backtrack on its own March 5th denial to hear Trump's request to do so. So, yes, that is correct. It's been brought before the Supreme Court, and they said, no, go and figure it out yourself. And they've got the list of all the decisions, which apparently that's not in there. But let's grab this one from our friends over at NPR again. Let's see what it is they have to say. Supreme Court upholds a lower court order to force USAID to pay contractors. Supreme Court on Wednesday reined in some of Trump admin's sweeping efforts to eliminate foreign aid that's been authorized by Congress by a 5-4 vote. I don't know what the list is of the votes either, by the way. It doesn't say here. The justices left in place a lower court order that so far has only required the Trump admin to pay the contractors for foreign aid work that's already been completed, roughly about $2 billion. So the foreign aid that's so far yet to be outgoing is still off. The case began 2 weeks ago when two major foreign aid contractors, the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition and the Global Health Council, went to court to challenge the Trump admin's cutoff of funds at U.S. aid and the State Department. Federal Judge Amir Ali, a Biden appointee, subsequently issued a temporary restraining order to allow the continuation of foreign aid funding while he examined the issues in the case. So, nope, no decision that's blocking the lower court decision yet. And no indication that we're going to get one, based on the fact that John Roberts doesn't want to hear it. The transgender ban in focus. From the Associated Press, federal judge blocks Trump admin from banning transgender people from military service. From Michael Kunzelman, a federal judge blocked enforcement of Trump's executive order banning transgender people from the military service on Tuesday, in the latest in a string of legal setbacks for his sweeping agenda. District Judge Ana Reyes in D.C. ruled that Trump's order to exclude transgender troops from military service likely violates their constitutional rights. She was the second judge of the day to rule against the admin, and both rulings came within hours of the extraordinary conflict. Trump called for impeaching the third judge, who temporarily blocked deportation flights, drawing a rare rebuke from John Roberts. Hey look, we talked about this guy again, because he's John effing Roberts. Reyes, surprise, surprise, was nominated by Biden, delayed her order until Friday morning to give the admin time to appeal. And appeal they will. The court knows this opinion will lead to heated public debate and appeals in a healthy democracy. Both are positive outcomes, Reyes wrote. We should all agree, however, that every person who answered the call to serve deserves our gratitude and respect. Reserve Second Lieutenant Nicholas Talbot, one of 14 transgender active duty service members, named as plaintiffs in the lawsuit, said he was holding his breath as he waited to find out if he would be separated from the military next week. I am not going to go to the same direction my friends are going to go on that one, because it's way too dark. This is such a sigh of relief, he said. This is all I ever wanted to do. This is my dream job, and I finally have it. I was so terrified that I was about to lose it. The White House didn't immediately respond to a message-seeking comment. Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, posted about the ruling on social media, writing, District Court judges have now decided they're in command of the armed forces. Is there no end to this madness? The judge issued a preliminary injunction requested by attorneys who also represent others seeking to join the military. There's a lot going on with this one here. And it brings a lot of the argument with transgenderism into focus in and of itself, and part of the reasons that we're having a lot of this argument. Now, as a U.S. government agency especially, but even the private sector has to abide by this, is that if you are put onto a job and can perform the job with reasonable accommodations, then you are protected from being thrown out of the job. And I know that Title IX has been expanded to hold transgenderism as a protected class in this one here. So they can't just toss you out for being transgender. But the question then comes up is, what is a reasonable accommodation for this? I know that there are some, especially if you've had the bottom surgery, there are some biological realities that would affect combat readiness with that. It's not as simple as just growing the thing on your arm and having to go with that and strapping it on and you go. And I don't know enough about what the bottom surgery does as to what the reasonable accommodations are. I'm a bit torn on this one, honestly. I know that even during the draft, when people were signing up, I mean, Disney made a joke about it, that you could be kicked out for flat feet. You could be rejected off the draft when they were trying to find soldiers. Desperate for soldiers for flat feet, or for being too small, for a number of things like that. Because they want to have the combat readiness to this, but, and this is just me, if you want to sign up and go out and be a human shield for the military-industrial complex, who am I to stop you? My big disagreements with a number of people wanting to jump up and join the military have nothing to do with what's hanging between their legs. It's the fact that we use this military and world police in places that we really have no business being. Go be all that you can be. Personally, I think that you can be more than a meat shield, but I mean, that's your decision. You're volunteering. In response to the order, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issued a policy that presumptively disqualifies people with gender dysphoria from military service. Gender dysphoria is the distress that a person feels because their assigned gender and gender identity don't match. The medical condition has been linked to depression and suicidal thoughts. I think, and I know I've heard this from MAGA people online, but I think one of the big arguments that they're trying to make is that the people are just signing up for this so they can go have their bottom surgery covered by the VA. I don't even know if that's a thing, because I know that there are certain things, cosmetic and otherwise, and elective, that the VA doesn't cover. So, yeah, I don't even know if that's... I've never had to go through the VA. Let's see. People should be keeping jobs because they're qualified for the job. Well, yeah. How they look, how they dress, whether or not they're pregnant shouldn't be reasons to not get a job you're qualified for. As for the military, they need physically competent people. If you can't pass the requirements, that's their thing to deny access to the job. Say for the jobs are required to lift so much every day. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's why I said reasonable accommodations. Arvold is here over on the D-Live side. Long says, flat feet thing wasn't just a joke. My grandfather was disqualified from military service during World War II for having flat feet. You can't regularly 50 pounds permanently. You shouldn't get that job. Exactly. Arvold joining us over on the D-Live side. Welcome in. Alright, we gotta keep going here. Where did I scroll to? Plaintiffs' attorneys contend that Trump's order violates transgender people's rights to equal protection under the Fifth Amendment. Government lawyers argue that military officials have broad discretion to decide how to assign and deploy service members without judicial interference. And that's actually another side of things too. I mean, realistically, and I know this comes into a major debate, that given the fact that we're already 1 hour and 15 minutes into this, and I still want to hold to the 2-hour mark as tight as I can, I mean, this comes down to the women in combat arguments and debates that we've been having since women were allowed in the military. Realistically, and with Palm pointing out the perfect point of if you can't lift 50 pounds, then you shouldn't go back and sign up for the job. And while I know that people like Styx will come back out and say, well, it's all about combat readiness and You need to be able to do this and relieve yourself effectively and everything else. Well, let's be realistic. You still need comms officers. You still need radar readers. You still need cooks. People in the military like to eat, and they eat a lot. I mean, there is still a ton of clerical roles that have nothing to do with combat readiness. So, I don't know where I fall on this one, honestly. I'm going to be completely full and honest and out about this. Government lawyers argue the military officials have broad discretion to decide how to assign and deploy service members without judicial interference. I read that already. Reyes said she did not take lightly her decision to issue an injunction blocking Trump's order, noting that judicial overreach has no less pernicious than executive overreach. But she said it was also the responsibility of each branch of government to provide checks and balances for the others, and the court therefore must act to uphold the equal protection rights from the military defense every day. Thousands of transgender people serve in the military, but they represent less than 1% of the total number of active duty service members. So, that is where they're at with that. Let's grab one from the Hill. Actually, I've got two back-to-back from the Hill, but they're not separate topics. Hegseth says Pentagon appealing block on Trump transgender military ban. From Tara Suter. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he's appealing the block on an executive order from Trump, effectively preventing transgender people from serving openly in the military. We're appealing the decision, and we will win, Hegseth said in a Wednesday Evening Post on the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. On Tuesday, District Judge Anna Reyes stopped Hegseth and other military officials. Let's see. Reyes also said the military statuses of plaintiffs could not be changed until further order of the court. We're not surprised to hear the military intends to appeal. We're very confident in the court's ruling. All the evidence in the case shows that transgender people are meeting standards and making tremendous contributions to ensure the security of the nation, Jennifer Levi, an attorney for the plaintiffs in the case, said in an email to The Hill. According to Reyes, an appointee of the former President Biden, her order intended to keep military policy status quo regarding transgender service members that existed prior to the president signing the Prioritizing Military Excellence and Readiness. The judge also stayed their order until Friday to allow the admin time to appeal. The court knows this opinion will lead to heated public debate and appeals, Reyes said in her opinion. In a healthy democracy, both are positive outcomes. I mean, I know it'll lead to heated public debate. I've already had one with myself sitting right here in the last 10 minutes. And I'm just one person. Well, me and the voices in my head, at least. A man's assertion that he's a woman and his requirement that others honor his falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required for a service member, the executive order states. The Hills reached out to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia for a comment. So, we'll see where that one goes. We'll probably be talking about this one next week as well. On the deportation flights. So, backdrop on this one, because I couldn't find an article that actually really explained this. So, before we get into the backlash off of this, earlier this week, the Trump admin gathered up through the State Department a large number, I don't know what the exact number was, of people alleged to be Venezuelan gang members to deport them back to Venezuela. A judge ordered that they stop and not go to Venezuela. They blocked the deportation while it was mid-flight. So instead, the flight diverted to El Salvador and basically dropped them there. This is from Zach Schoenfield and Rebecca Beach. I always say this whenever I read this woman's name, but that had to have been a hard time in high school with a name like that. Alright. A federal judge lashed out at the Trump admin on Monday for refusing to answer questions about flights deporting Venezuelan migrants under the Alien Enemies Act after he ordered them to turn around the planes. It was a remarkable hearing in which a Justice Department attorney repeatedly declined to provide details about the flights that landed in El Salvador on Sunday evening, saying he was not authorized to do so. A rare instance of an attorney rebuffing a judge's questions. U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg called the hearing after a Monday morning filing from the American Civil Liberties Union, arguing the government may have violated a court order halting the flights, apparently refusing to turn them around after the judge barred them. At Monday's hearing, Deputy Associate Attorney General Pishek Kambli contended the judge's oral command wasn't binding because the judge didn't include the instruction of the airborne flights in his written order. I memorialized it in shorthand, but you're telling me that very clear point that you could disregard it because it wasn't in the written order, pressed Boasberg, an appointee of former President Obama. Wouldn't it have been better, of course, to return the planes around the United States as opposed to going forward and saying, "We don't care, we'll do what we want," Boasberg asked later in the hearing. Your Honor, that's not the approach that we've taken in this argument, Combly responded. The arguments from Combly were in lockstep with assertions from the White House earlier this afternoon. All the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed the U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, or Bubble-Headed Bleach Blonde as I like to say her, told reporters. She added that the White House has questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a written order, and our lawyers determined to ask and answer those questions in court. That's actually an interesting distinction in and of itself. Is an oral order sufficient enough to do something, or do you have to have it in writing by that point? And I don't know that we've actually ever had a clear determination of this. I mean, typically you get the verbal order from the judge in court, but then by the time you go back out and pick up your documents, it's written. Whereas the judge's oral order, I guess, happened while these flights were taking off. So they were already over international waters and outside of the judge's jurisdiction before the order was written and recorded in the National Register. Judges routinely give oral orders from the bench, and they're binding just like written orders posted to the court's docket. The ACLU on Monday said Boasberg issued an oral order to turn around the planes at approximately 6:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Those instructions were also posted to the court's docket by 7:26 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The ACLU included the flight information it received from the government, indicating the planes did not land in Honduras until 7:36 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time and 8:02 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday. The group suggested the planes later took off again before ultimately landing in El Salvador, arriving hours after each of Boasberg's orders. The ACLU has also disputed the Justice Department instances that none of the flights took off from the U.S. after Boasberg's ruling, citing a media report. At one point in the hearing, Boasberg questioned why the flights were arranged at all, noting the government knew Saturday morning they would face a hearing on the legality of the flights at 5 p.m. Well, that's probably why they took off. The Trump admin on Saturday invoked the Alien Enemies Act, which it says grants the power to deport without hearing any Venezuelan it deems to be a member of the Tren de Aragua gang. El Salvador has agreed to house 361 deported migrants removed on the flight. though 137 were deported under the Alien Enemies Act. So, a lot of stuff is moving in this one here. The question being, now I'm a due process guy, and I do hear the leftoids who finally found what due process was. It only took it coming from somebody that they don't like, who finally found out what due process was, who like to now post on X that, I mean, these people are being held in a prison in El Salvador. And they're being held there without due process, as they like to point out. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I've often been on the position of, yes, I do want to see the illegal aliens deported, and yes, they committed a crime by being here. But if our rights come from our creator, that means that they are still entitled to a form of due process of law, a hearing. The public defender side of things gets to be a gray area because that is the government providing a service that they don't necessarily have to provide to somebody who's not under their own purview because it's not a citizen of the United States. But also, if the right to defense from somebody who knows something about the law is a right from a creator, it does come down to the idea of can you force somebody to do this? Because having the public defender involves the labor of others. It's not necessarily God just comes out. God doesn't put a public defender in front of you. Somebody still has to work for that. Your right to stand up to the government comes from God. Your right to have the government provide you somebody to stand up to them for you comes from the government. So, it's been a heated one, that's for sure. Briefly here from CBS News, judge demands to know why Trump admin ignored order about redirecting deportation flights. From Jacob Rosen and Callie Tietenbaum. A federal judge admonished the DOJ on Monday for disobeying its order to turn around two planes en route to El Salvador that were carrying alleged Tren de Aragua gang members. He also demanded explanations about removal flights ordered since Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act on Saturday. During a hearing on the Trump admin's compliance with his order, D.C. District Judge James Boasberg demanded answers by Tuesday at noon to clarify what occurred on Saturday. Both before and after he blocked the government's removal flights, he asked the government whether additional planes have left the U.S. with Tren de Aragua gang members, and he wants a timeline showing when the flights took off from the U.S. and landed in El Salvador and a count of remaining members of the gang in U.S. custody. Boasberg also demanded detailing timing on when Trump's order invoking the Alien Enemies Act was signed and went into effect. The 1798 Act was a wartime authority, allowing the president to detain and deport non-citizens. Trump is utilizing the act to detain and deport all Venezuelan migrants 14 years of age and older who are suspected of being members of the Tren de Aragua gang. DOJ attorney argued that because the judge did not put his order demanding the planes to return to the U.S. in writing, the government was not bound by it, but he added that even if the order had been written, the president had the authority to keep the flights en route to their final destination. And again, you're over international water at that point, so the judge's order technically doesn't have jurisdiction here. So, that's going to be an interesting one to get before the court. Let's see. That's saying the same thing. That's saying the same thing. That's actually saying the same thing. We could be using the New York Times, a former newspaper. But they give us a map as actually where this was going. So we have a bit more of an idea. So it looks like, yeah, they were out over international waters too. For those of you on the audio platform, the plane left from Harlingen, Texas. I probably butchered that name. So it was a matter of minutes before it was over international waters and outside the jurisdiction of the judge's order. And yes, they ended at San Salvador, El Salvador. Alright, what else do we have? The impeachment of this judge. So this is the, if we look at the title, we've already talked about the judge not. And now apparently this judge is going to be judged herself. From Andrew Solender. No, I actually don't think that's the case, Palm. The U.S. flight left from U.S. soil. It's U.S. soil till it lands. I don't necessarily know, because international waters, I mean, we've talked about getting married on international waters and how that goes and works and gets recognized by the U.S. That's also with a ship, so. But no, I believe as soon as you're not over U.S. land anymore, and I think there's a buffer zone into the ocean. But pretty much as soon as you're not over land, you're not on U.S. soil anymore. All right, from Axios, House GOP moves swiftly to impeach judge targeted by Trump. Targeted. Ooh, it's scary. I love how Axios puts this language in here. They're not biased at all, trust me. From Andrew Solender. Just hours after Trump called for the impeachment of a federal judge who ruled against his deportation of hundreds of Venezuelans over the weekend, House Republicans introduced a measure to do just that. Why it matters, GOP lawmakers unleashed an unprecedented flood of long-shot impeachment articles aimed at federal judges who were standing in the way of Trump's agenda. Long shot indeed, by the way. A reminder that you need 67 votes in the Senate to make a conviction. And by the way, leftoids remember this now, because they were all convinced that they just needed 60 votes to convict Trump both times for his 2 impeachments, which he's probably getting a third and maybe a fourth or a fifth. We might see 7 times impeachment. I'm sure they'll find something. James Boasberg, Chief Judge of the D.C. District Court, is at least the 5th federal judge who's facing a House GOP impeachment after issuing a ruling unfavorable to the administration. Trump's comments on Tuesday targeting Boasberg spurred a rare public rebuke from John Roberts. Brandon Gill of Texas said Tuesday he's introducing articles of impeachment against Boasberg, arguing he overstepped his authority, compromised the impartiality of the judiciary, and created a constitutional crisis. Gill's 4-page impeachment resolution charges Boasberg with abuse of power, arguing that he did knowingly and willfully use his judicial position to advance political gain. It argues the Alien Enemies Act gives the president sole and unreviewable discretion to determine whether an invasion has taken place and thus whether its powerful emergency provisions can be exercised. Forgetting to breathe over here. Gill's measures co-sponsored by Eli Crane of Arizona, Buddy Carter of Georgia, Mike Collins of Georgia, and Barry Moore of Alabama, and Andrew Clyde of Georgia. Unsurprisingly, all Republican. Republicans also moved to impeach federal judges Paul Engelmeyer, John McConnell Jr., John Bates, and Amir Hatem Mahdi Ali. So, as far as impeachment for purely political reasons, I mean, the door was open under the first Trump presidency to go back and, just impeach because you didn't like the person. You bring me the man and I find you the crime. And while we can go back and look at who appointed these judges, when they were appointed, etc., abuse of power is going to be a hard one to prove. And again, it's all long shots because you still need 67 votes in the Senate. And trust me, Mr. Schumer is going to be threatening people with primary and their jobs if they don't go back and fall into line and vote against it. And these people know it. So I would like to see, and that's going to be one thing off this. And I mean, this goes back to my regular position on putting Hillary in jail, putting Joe Biden and his son in jail, and the stupid stuff that we hear all the time off of that. I don't necessarily want to see the DOJ go after people for political reasons or put people in the prison for political reasons, because even if you have solid, concrete, stone cold evidence that is irrefutable no matter what, it's still going to be perceived as partisan and a partisan witch hunt, and these people are going to sit in prison and be martyrs over it. One of the things I do like about the idea of making this impeachment, especially if they think that they have the goods, is even if the Senate will not move to make the conviction, and I know for a fact that they won't, the documentation will be out there. We'll have the transparency. It'll be a part of the public record, it'll be a part of the public hearing when they have the impeachment, not the trial, but the articles. If they have their investigation with it, then we'll actually know why they say that it's corruption, abuse of power. I mean, we can sit down and argue and speculate on X all we want, but until there's actual evidence presented, it's all just an argument on X. So yeah, even if a person doesn't get removed from their post, you've actually got the evidence out there. Now, as for a judge, that's almost a moot point at that point, based on the fact that they're appointed for lifetime positions. They don't have to sit back and face down re-election. But then we still have the idea of who is doing what and where, and I mean, that in and of itself, if we find abuse of power and actual evidence of abuse of power coming from an investigation, that opens the door for the Supreme Court to actually act and use that as part of the record and evidence when they do strike down this particular judge's decisions. From ABC News, judge orders thousands of federal workers reinstated, slams sham government declaration. From Peter Charalambous over at ABC News. A federal judge on Thursday ordered the Trump admin to reinstate thousands of probationary employees fired last month from half a dozen federal agencies. District Judge William Alsup ordered the Trump admin to reinstate employees at the Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Agriculture, the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, the Department of the Interior, and the Department of the Treasury. He also prohibited the Office of Personnel Management from issuing any guidance about whether employees can be terminated. That's literally the Office of Personnel Management's job. That's literally in their job description. How can you block that? Alsup, a Clinton appointee, also ordered the immediate discovery and deposition of Office of Personnel Management Senior Advisor Noah Peters, who was aligned with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The judge slammed the attorney representing the DOJ for refusing to make OPM Acting Director Charles Essel available for cross and for withdrawing for his sworn declaration, which the judge called a sham. The government, I believe, has tried to frustrate the judge's ability to get to the truth of what happened here, and then set forth sham declarations. He said that's not the way it works for the U.S. District Court. White House Press Secretary, bubble-headed bleach blonde, slammed the judge in a statement Thursday afternoon, vowing to immediately fight back against the absurd and unconstitutional order. If a federal district judge would like executive powers, they can try and run for president themselves. The Trump admin will immediately fight back against this absurd and unconstitutional order, she said in a statement. Justice Department lawyers filed a notice of appeal following the ruling, signaling their plan to challenge the order to reinstate employees. So, On this one here, I think that the Trump admin is in the right. I think that this judge is completely in the wrong. The Office of Personnel Management and Budget is literally the HR department. And unless there is an employment contract, which for some of these people, non-probationary employees, with the government employees union, there is a contract. I don't know if the probationaries are eligible for this contract or not, but there is a contract available to this, and if they're firing in violation of so, then yes, the judge is in the right off this one. But given the fact that they could, tells me that there is no contract currently and they're at-will employees. Oh, got him. The Nightbot got that one. The mods didn't get to that one. Bye-bye, unwanted seed ship. We will send you off with the proper channel send-off. Is it this one? It's this one. Oh crap, there's a commercial on this one. Yeah, I gotta switch this all over to Brave because the YouTube commercials. The bot is gone. So, anyway, where I was going with that one when I noticed the bot is, yeah, if there's an employment contract because of the government employees union, then yes, this is a bit of a stickier situation. But if the probationary employees are not a part of the union, then there's really nothing the judge can sit back and do about this one. And I do think that this particular judge has overstepped his bounds. Alright. Let's keep going. A lot of this is repeat stuff. Let's talk about the Tesla vandalism. Because there's a weird story that I never thought I'd see. Leftoids are vandalizing electric vehicles because Elon man bad. And it's pretty stupid, honestly, to go after Tesla vehicles. And I make fun of all the electronics, cameras, etc. that are on modern vehicles. And I myself do not want to own a vehicle that has all that crap, but I myself also don't want to own a Tesla. For any reason whatsoever. Anything that has self-driving, government driving, satellite driving, etc. Yeah, don't want it. No. And if that stuff starts to become mandated, then my next vehicle becomes carbureted. Because no, we ain't gonna do that shit. That is shit that ain't happening, my friend. But with that being said, I make fun of all these electronics and everything, and that's actually what's causing some of these people to go back and get picked up. Because, well, they're vandalizing, and they're vandalizing to the point on some of these vehicles, especially the Cybertruck with stainless steel panels, that it's total loss at that point based on the amount of money it requires to go back and replace these stainless steel panels. Which makes this vandalism in excess of $10,000, which is a Class C felony in Wisconsin. Oh, did I miss one? I missed one. No, we got the bot to get it. Alright, Tesla vandals are terrorists, according to President Trump. From Zachary B. Wolf. President Trump's admin is trying to expand the definition of domestic terrorism as it aims to crack down on a wave of attacks in which Teslas have been shot and set on fire, apparently to protest CEO Elon Musk's powerful but murky role in cutting the U.S. government. He doesn't have a powerful role. He's an advisor. Critics of Musk and Trump will see irony in the use of the term domestic terrorism to describe people attacking electric vehicles after Trump issued mass pardons for more than 1,000 January 6 selfie takers who were led into the Capitol and took selfies during the confirmation of the 2020 election results. No, for those of you who are wondering if CNN actually wrote that, no. I'm just not going to repeat the propaganda. Under Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland, the DOJ announced a new national strategy to combat domestic terrorism after January 6th, as well as a wave of deadly mass shootings by white nationalists and right-wing extremists. We didn't have any deadly mass shootings by white nationalists and right-wing extremists. All the mass shootings that we had during the Biden years, I think all of them were transgender. Left-wingers. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I think all of them turned out to be at least left-wing. The term will apparently take a new meaning under Trump, and the FBI and law enforcement agencies will now focus on anti-corporate vandals targeting vehicles. Usually the word terrorism is not used to describe vandalism, Daniel Byman, director of the Warfare, Irregular Threats and Terrorism program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, told me. There's a lot of property destruction, at times for political reasons, and this is almost never labeled as terrorism. These attacks seem designed not to harm people, Byman said. I don't know, I'm pretty much in the camp of what happened in Kenosha was terrorism, as they were trying to make a demonstration to get a political outcome by destroying people's property, as long as they stayed in the designated protest zone. You'll remember my commentary at the time was that, oh, it's kind of funny that they didn't get into the rich areas. People who are not familiar with the layout and geography of Kenosha wouldn't have known that. I lived there for 10 years. I know that. And this is the same thing. I mean, you're destroying hundreds of thousands of dollars of property. And I don't think these people would stop if they saw that the person was in the vehicle. Luckily, we have yet to see any instance where someone's burned up a Tesla while somebody was in it. But I don't think it's above and beyond because, again, and they're open about this. They're doing this to exact a political change. This is definitively terrorism. Pam Bondi described the Tesla desecration as nothing short of domestic terrorism. In a statement released Tuesday, she promised to impose severe consequences on those involved in these attacks, including those operating behind the scenes to coordinate and fund these crimes. That would be the other side of this, is if there is a link in an organization found funding this, then yes, there are bigger issues with this. Let's see, there have been documented instances of Tesla vandalism in the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, and around the country, not to mention countless posts on social media. Federal prosecutors charged a woman in Colorado with using incendiary devices, Molotovs, to target a Tesla vehicle, and federal agents in South Carolina made an arrest in connection with a fire set up at a Tesla charging station, according to the Associated Press, which reported that an affidavit mentioned the man's opposition to Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Now, federal agents being involved in this, I do disagree with, unless investigation finds, of course, that there is a coordinated effort by somebody pulling the strings above so, and that's across state lines. But regardless of the domestic terrorism assertion, this is still all vandalism, so this is all still state crime. But investigation-wise, not arrest-wise, this is the position where, yes, you start to bring an agency like the FBI in and say, hey, is there something that we need to know about going across state lines? Not, I'm going to kick in your door because of something that you posted online. Domestic terrorism is not a specific crime in which a person can be charged, but it's defined in U.S. law as acts that are dangerous to human life, violate U.S. or state law, and are intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, to influence the policy of government by intimidation or coercion, to affect the conduct of government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. I want to point out a little bit of this here, and I do still come back and say this is domestic terrorism because it's meant to affect a political outcome specifically to coerce a civilian population. I mean, these people are bragging about the fact that these cars might become uninsurable and people are trying to turn them in even at a loss. That is coercing a civilian population. And, trying to get Elon Musk fired from stuff, that's influencing the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion. And the scratching of the swastikas in it, and we'll watch a video later of a guy basically stink palming a Tesla. If you've seen Mallrats, you know what I'm talking about. Those are one thing, but when you burn these things, these are lithium batteries. You don't just put that out with the water that's on the fire truck. And they can sit and burn hotter than even a gasoline fire for longer. And yes, that is putting people at risk directly. CNN, allegations without evidence of a conspiracy. We'll talk about that later. It's just lone wolves all doing the exact same thing for the exact same reason. It's not a conspiracy, you tinfoil hat wearer. Elon Musk says he's shocked at the level of Tesla hate and vandalism happening. I've never done anything harmful. From Jordan Hart. Elon has some words for Tesla vandals. Asked about the widespread incidences against Tesla dealerships and vehicles during the Fox News appearance on Tuesday, Musk denounced them and said that the vandalism has reached levels he's never seen. He also attributed the incidences to those on the political left. It's really come as quite a shock to me that this is level of really hatred and violence from the left, Musk said. Protests have spread across the U.S. since Musk began his work at the White House Doge office in January. Across the pond, the slogan, "Don't buy a Tesla," has been used as a rallying cry of sorts in places such as Berlin and Wales. Berlin telling people not to buy a vehicle because of the perceived politics of the founder. Berlin, the home of Volkswagen. You guys remember when Alyssa Milano said the words, I swear to God, there's no self-awareness from this, I'm turning in my Tesla because the CEO of Tesla is a Nazi. I'm trading it in for a Volkswagen. She actually said that. I checked the link, the profile, to make sure it wasn't a parody, because I thought it was a parody. I've traded in my Tesla for a Volkswagen because the owner of Tesla is a Nazi. Or the CEO of Tesla is a Nazi, or founder, I guess it was, is a Nazi. Yeah. The grassroots Tesla takedown protest movement, which started on Blue Sky, a competitor to X, has called for Tesla owners to sell their vehicles in stock in an effort to stop Musk now. A website for the effort has listed dozens of public demonstrations at Tesla showrooms in recent weeks. I've always thought that the left, Democrats was supposed to be the party of empathy, the party of caring, and yet they're burning down cars, the firebombing dealerships, they're firing bullets into dealerships, the smashing up Teslas, Musk said. Tesla's a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. And Business Insider, because they have to, a dangerous conspiracy. Musk also suggests without evidence that the protests and vandalism incidences might be part of a broader conspiracy against him. Let's see. Grassroots effort, protest movement, on Blue Sky, directing people to do the same thing in multiple different places for the same reason, which means that all these people are conspiring to do so. There might not be a Soros on the top of it, but it's still people conspiring to do. It's a conspiracy! Just because people like you have changed the definition of conspiracy on your platforms to say, big shadowy man smoking a cigar in the background, as the very definition of conspiracy, doesn't mean that definition of conspiring has changed. So, he has responded. From CNPC rather. Doge doc site maps Musk world as Trump AG threatens Tesla vandals with federal charges. Which, given the fact that they're coordinating this across state lines with the doc site, that would warrant a federal charge. Exactly what the charge would be at this point, I don't know. But because it's across state lines, then yes. That would be. From Dan Mangan. And there is the map, by the way, too. It's real. From what I understand, you can take it right down to the street address, too. A new online map highlighting locations across the U.S. of Tesla owners, dealerships, and superchargers, along with purported addresses and phone numbers connected to members of the Trump admin's Doge team, led by Tesla CEO Elon Musk. The Doge Quest map spread online after launching Monday as police continued to investigate a spate of vandalism against Tesla locations across the country. Musk on Wednesday responded to a tweet that mentioned Doge Quest. Encouraging destruction of Teslas throughout the country is extreme domestic terrorism, Musk wrote. Pam Bondi on Tuesday called the swarm of violent attacks on Tesla property nothing short of domestic terrorism. The DOJ has already charged several perpetrators with that in mind, including cases that involve charges with a 5-year mandatory minimum, Bondi said in a statement. Bondi's statement came hours after a person carrying a gun and a Molotov launched a fiery attack at a Tesla location in Vegas. We will continue investigations that impose severe consequences on those involved in these attacks, including those operating behind the scenes to coordinate and fund these crimes, the AG said. And it's still a wild. It's still, a wild thing to me. The fact that, you immediately turn on somebody when they don't espouse your same political views. I'm reminded, they used to love the guy. Elon Musk was a hero of the left. Even going so far as to get cameos in some of those popular television and movies at the time. I have 2 examples I can come with right off the top of my head. He had a cameo. They tell me he had a cameo in Young Sheldon, but I haven't seen that yet. But he did have a walk-on cameo in Big Bang. That one I've seen. And his little cameo in Iron Man 2, where Tony Stark looks over at the Monaco race and says, "Oh, Elon, how's that electric jet coming along?" And he was there. His face popped up there. I wonder if they've edited that out. I'll have to go on Disney Plus and watch that. Yeah, but then I'd have to watch that movie again. Maybe I don't want to do that. Trump on Wednesday posted on social media a video clip of him replying, "Sure, I think so," to a question from Fox News host Laura Ingraham, who asked if he considers the attack on Tesla property to be domestic terrorism. Trump also claimed, without evidence, that when people are arrested for those crimes, I think that you'll find there are people that are highly political on the left. Trump, in the same interview, called Musk, who spent hundreds of millions of dollars to help him win a second term in the White House, a patriot. So, that's the site. From Mario Nawafal, Tesla owners dock, sell your car, or stay on the list. A website called DogeQuest has reportedly published the names, addresses, and phone numbers of Tesla owners across the US, complete with an interactive map and a Molotov cocktail cursor. The site claims it will only remove personal data if the owners prove that they've sold their Tesla in an apparent backlash to Musk's ties with the Trump admin. This comes as Tesla dealerships face gunfire, arson attempts, and Cybertruck owners report harassment, while anti-Tesla protests ramp up nationwide. So, Long says, brilliant idea. Hit the people behind the Doge dock site with kingpin charge, owning and operating a criminal empire. You know, big kahuna in the list of charges on which they convicted Ross Ulbricht. It's actually not a terrible strategy. All right. What else do we have? So we have some video of some of this. The stink palm, of course. I'm gonna see if I can find that video while this guy's doing this. Let's do this one so I don't have to deal with with a commercial. Let's do this. Man digs in his own butt with his bare hands before smearing them on the door of a Cybertruck. The only loser here is the guy who's sticking his hand up his own butt. Insane. I did catch myself that time. Let me see if this one goes back to when it happened.
Alright, so you can't scream?
Yep, this one goes back into it. And it's only 2.5 minutes long. It's the first thing that I thought of when I saw this video. Let's kill the music. Oh, volume. Come over here.
Stink palm. Scream at him, but after all he's done to you, you should still kind of stick it to him.
How do you propose I do that?
You stink palm.
It's a stink palm.
You take your hand, you stick it in your ass like this. You've been walking all day and you're also nervous, so no doubt you'll be sweaty as hell.
You should see yourself right now. A grown man with his hand down his pants.
Yeah, I probably look like my old man. There, now you shake hands with the guy. Hey, Mr. Svinning, how have you been?
What's the point?
You know how long it takes for that smell to come off? Scrub all you like, it'll stick around for at least 2 days. How does he explain it to his colleagues and family? They'll think he doesn't know how to wipe his ass properly.
Meanwhile, you yourself are left with a hand that smells like shit.
Small price to pay for the smiting of one's enemies.
I think I'll pass.
That's probably where that guy got the idea from. And meanwhile, again, he himself walks around for the rest of the day with a hand that smells like poop. Probably like 2 days at this point. Let's see, what else is there? This guy keyed a Tesla at a gym in Colorado and just got arrested and charged with a felony. Class D. Well, it's Class D in Wisconsin. He's in Colorado, so they have different classifications. Imagine ruining your life because a bunch of anons on social media told you that Elon Musk was a Nazi. I mean, do you not see how that could be a problem? And again, they have cameras on them in Sentry mode. gonna get caught. Alright, what else? Tim Walls. And I have video that goes with this one too. In fact, I'm going to skip this one just because I have 2 videos on that instead. Tim Walls. John Lefebvre. Tesla employs 80,000 Americans. Tesla makes the best-selling car in the world. Tesla is revolutionizing transportation. And Democrats are rooting for it to fail. This is grotesque. Let's grab this one here.
Saying on my phone, I know some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So.
Go ahead.
And if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, you know, and take out. Just telling you. Saying on my phone, I know some.
Yeah, if you own one, we're not blaming you, but we're still going to key and burn your car. Well, let's hear it from the people who occasionally have a good idea over on CNN. Nick Adams. Kevin O'Leary nails it on multiple points. Anyone who lights a car on fire should go to jail. Tim Walz is a moron because Minnesota's pension plan is backed by Tesla stock. Which it is, by the way.
I think go back to point 1. When you set a car on fire, you should go to jail. You're a criminal.
Any car,
I don't think we have to talk
Yeah,
about it
not
in any
just
other
Tesla.
context. And all those cars have cameras in them, and those dealerships have cameras. You're beyond being stupid when you do that. You're going to go to jail, and you now have a government that just got their mandate. They can't wait to find idiots that do this. You're going to spend 5 to 20 years in prison. If they get them on terrorism, which I think is a stretch, they will have no parole, no shortened sentence. They'll rot in hell in prison for 20 years. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's okay. Breaking in, shooting a car, setting on fire, nothing to do with the politics, nothing to do with Tesla. You are a criminal, and you should go
what about the broader
to
question
jail.
about the protest factor? I mean, you heard
What
Tim Walz.
protest? You're a criminal.
I'm talking about Tim Walz and his comments about the Tesla stock. He says it gives him a boost to see that stock going down.
That poor guy didn't check his portfolio and his own pension plan for state. It's beyond stupid what he did. He's talking down a 3.5% weighting in his own pension plan. I mean, what's the matter with that guy? He doesn't check the well-being of his own constituents in his state.
I mean,
that's their
to
investment
your
fund.
point,
What a bozo.
The minute.
Yeah. And that's exactly it, too. All right. A little bit of counter-protest, and as funny as it was, and as ironic as it is, because there's a load of irony in this, I do have to be consistent in my views, and I do not condone this because the last person that I know that did this because he didn't like small little rice burner vehicles, I called him a moron for doing it like this. And, well, I'm still trying to keep my language cleaned up, so I can't say the other thing I've called him. Diesel trucks, coal rolling Tesla protesters was not on my 2025 bingo card. We on the same team now? Questions Nick Cruz Patain. And there's a large amount of irony in this one here because, well, the people who used to protest against climate change, who are now protesting against the vehicles that would have offset climate change, not prevent, but offset, are now being hit by smoke from a vehicle that they were protesting to begin with. Oh, this AVG thing is going to have to go away. Getting about done with that. But let's watch the video. Still got to stay consistent. I can't condone that. I've called the other person that I saw doing that an idiot, so that is a step too far. Still kind of funny, though. Especially with my love for irony. Alright, let's finish off the last few things that we have here. From the Associated Press, Education Department staff cuts would limit options for families of kids with disabilities. From the Associated Press, the Department of Education on the federal side has been halved. No effects to state departments of education at this point. Let's read from the Associated Press. Annie Ma reporting on this one. For parents of kids with disabilities, advocating for their child can be complicated, time-consuming, and expensive. Changes at the Education Department are likely to make the process even more difficult, advocates for kids with disabilities say. When a parent believes their child is not receiving proper services or school accommodations for disability, they can seek remedies from their district. They can file complaints with their state, arguing the child's rights have been taken away without due process of law, or even pursue litigation in state or federal courts. These processes often involve multiple sessions with hearing officers who are not required to be experts in disability law. Legal fees can cost tens of thousands of dollars. For a single case, legal aid and other advocacy organizations can provide free assistance, often have more demand for their services than they can meet. But filing a complaint with the Education Department has long been an option for families who can't afford a lawyer. They begin by filling out Office of Civil Rights online form, documenting the alleged instances of discrimination. From there, the agency staff is supposed to investigate the complaint, often interviewing school district employees and examining the district policies for broader possible violations. It is known and has weight of the federal government behind it, said Dan Stewart, managing attorney for education and employment at the National Disability Rights Network. The process, the complaint portal, as well as the processing manual are all public and does not require or typically involve lawyers. That option seems increasingly out of reach, advocates say. Under Trump, the Education Department staff has been cut approximately in half, including the Office for Civil Rights, whose attorneys are charged with investigating complaints of discrimination against kids with disabilities. The staff has been directed to prioritize anti-Semitism cases. More than 20,000 pending cases, including those related to kids with disabilities. Historically, the largest share of the office's work actually sat idle for weeks after Trump took office. A freeze on processing the cases was lifted early this month, but advocates question whether the department can make the progress on them with a smaller staff. So, and I know that, especially with the Associated Press, they're moving to the worst possible outcome of this. The Department of Education is oversized and bloated, and I mean, in my opinion, shouldn't exist in the first place. It's caused more problems historically than it's solved at this point, and a lot more of this stuff can be effectively done at a state level. And I would like to see states compete against each other, to try to get more people to move. But with this being said, of course, it is to my understanding, number one, that half the department is still there. They have made no determination publicly about which specific employees were let go of. I'd like to think that in a case like this, a department like that was not touched. I don't know that that's the case, because the executive branch hasn't said which employees that were targeted when they have the system. The people, the activists who are fighting against this, haven't said who was let go by any of this. So right now we have no way of knowing. Benefit of the doubt on that one. But it is to my understanding as well that a lot of the functions that were deemed essential when the Department of Education, they started talking about eliminating it entirely, were to be set off to other departments, such as, like this one, the Civil Rights. The Office of Civil Rights was to go, I believe it was to go under the OSHA department, because they effectively investigate the same kind of thing. And it could be better served with the lawyers that are there that are focus fired on doing that sort of investigation. But without knowing, again, until I get an actual list of which positions were cut, I'd like to think that at least a portion of this department is still intact. This department within the Department of Education, or the office rather within the Department of Education. The reduction in force is simply an evisceration for the Office of Civil Rights, investigatory authority, and responsibility. Stewart said, "There's no way I can see the OCR can keep up with the backlog or incoming complaints. Do you know that anybody specifically in the OCR has been taken out?" A federal lawsuit filed Friday challenges the layoffs at the Office for Civil Rights, saying they decimated the office's ability to process and investigate complaints. So possibly they have at that point. While the OCR process was not perfect, reducing the office's investigative staff will only worsen the challenges families face when seeking support for their kids, said Nikki Carter, an advocate for kids with disabilities and one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. It makes them feel hopeless and helpless, Carter said, by reducing the number of employees to handle cases and putting stipulations on certain cases. It only makes it feel intensified. Education Department officials insist that staff reductions will not affect civil rights investigations and the layoffs were strategic decisions. So, I'd like to actually see a list by department on who did that. And that's one of the things that's frustrated me about the Department of Government Efficiency, is that they do, like Elon himself and a bunch of other people post on X about all this money that they saved and everything that they found, and they never come with receipts. Now, I know part of that is because there's personal information on some of this stuff that has not been redacted. So I get why, but I'd still like to see some sort of receipt on what it is that you got rid of. Randy Weingarten spitting mad about the evisceration of the Education Department, because of course she is. The person who makes all of her money off teachers' union dues is mad about the reduction of the Education Department. I feel like that person has a little bit of skin in the game on this one. Just a little bit. American Federations of Teachers President Randy Weingarten said she was spitting mad over the staffing cuts at the Department of Education, describing it as an evisceration by 1,000 cuts. So what it does is that it levels the playing field so all kids can have an opportunity, and that it was they are cutting, and when they cut half the people, it's like an evisceration by 1,000 cuts, Weingarten said, listing the Department of Education's duties. The Department of Education announced on Tuesday that it would be shrinking its workforce from around 4,133 to around 2,183 employees. Remaining workers impacted by the reductions will be placed on administrative leave beginning March 21st. I'm so mad, I'm spitting mad about this because it's hurting the people who can't vote. Children don't vote. Let's take away their opportunity. What they did yesterday was cowardly, have the fight with 65% of Americans who believe that we need to have an education department, she said earlier in the discussion. Fact, education is done at the local level. State governments, state education departments, local school boards, that's who does education. And we believe that and we want that. I have never seen, in the 6 years that I've known who Randy Weingarten is, I've never seen any evidence of the fact that you know that and you want that. It's the opportunity agent, it's the equalizer. She said the department helps with providing children with reading specialists for certain disabilities, getting students occupational therapists, Pell Grants, and more. I think every kid should have sports. I think every kid should have experiential learning, Getting them the equipment to do that, it could go on and on, she said. She said the department's staffing cuts were not efficient, describing it as evisceration. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said her agency took the first steps Tuesday to eliminate bureaucratic bloat at the federal level and to bring more power to the states during an interview on the Ingram angle. You know what the funniest part about this whole thing to me is the shift politically in what happened with this, because, and again, I was a very, very reliable Democrat vote for a long part of my adult life. Not the majority anymore, but for a long part of my adult life, I was a very reliable Democrat vote. And I was with people who were like-minded to me who at the time, 04 to 06, into 08 even, who all were saying the same thing. The federal government has no say in this. The Department of Education should be eviscerated. It should be gotten rid of. We need to get rid of this all. It's tearing everything apart. Now, there was probably partisanship behind that too, because, and I'll admit with the people who were saying it and where I was drinking this in, was the fact that it was in response to No Child Left Behind, a George W. Bush program. But these same people, and many of them who I know are saying the opposite now, were with me saying that the Department of Education was a boon on Americans and it was only making kids dumber. I was with people when they said that. Some of this does seem like the same people who I was with at the time only want to see the Department of Education saved based on the fact that they hate the person who's trying to actually do what they said that needed to be done 20 years ago. Yeah, Arvold says there are things the Department of Education should do, but they don't do those. It might just be my disdain for Bush talking, but all I ever saw No Child Left Behind do was bring down the standards and dumb down the education system for everybody else. All right, let's do this one here. From CBS News, Columbia University expels some students who seized buildings last year and suspends others. I have no author given on this one. Columbia says it's expelled or suspended some students who took over a campus during pro-Palestinian protests last spring, and has temporarily revoked the diplomas of some students who have since graduated. In a campus-wide email sent Thursday, the university said its judicial board has issued sanctions against dozens of students who occupied Hamilton Hall based on its evaluation of the severity of behaviors. The university did not provide a breakdown of how many students were expelled, suspended, or had their degrees revoked. So, I'm not even going to go too far into this one, but I do want to talk about just this first couple paragraphs that we had in this particular article. As far as expulsion, while you are in attendance at the school, there's a handbook. You are expected to abide by a certain set of rules and regulations. I have not read the Columbia University's handbook, so I do not know which rule was violated by these people that they were facing expulsion. But if they have violated a rule and the judicial board can actually back up the expulsion, then yes, the judicial board is well within its rights to expel the students for the protest. It was causing problems. Some of them were getting violent, and they were preventing people who actually wanted to be in the school to get the accreditation, not to be activists, but to actually go to labs, go to the classroom, consult with their teacher on things like that. They were preventing those people's rights to do so. That is between the students and Columbia University. That's not a federal law. That's not a federal crime. And yes, if there is a provision in there for the judicial department of Columbia University to do so, then yes, that's between the student and them on whether or not the expulsion goes through. As far as the degrees go, that's just stupid. I'm sorry. That's dumb. Whatever the people that were there took away from their college experience that already had the degrees and already graduated, they fulfilled the prescribed curriculum that you put in front of them to enough of ability that they can go back out and get their job. You can take their piece of paper away from them. You can't take the skills, whatever they may be, that they learned away from them. They went through and they completed the curriculum course. You take the piece of paper away from them, they can still come back and tell their employer, yes, I went to this school. This is entirely symbolic. I mean, I hate to boil this all down to no takesies, backsies, but that's literally all that there is to it. You can't go back and take away their experience. They went, they sat through your lectures, your people's lectures and everything. They got what it is that they needed. You can't open up the top of their head and mind wipe them. It just doesn't work. But apparently the people at Columbia believe that it does. I've got this one here. Fatima Bhutto says if they're revoking degrees, you better be returning tuition money. This is obscene. No, they shouldn't. I don't believe that they should. But again, the whole revoking the degree is just symbolic and dumb. AI News picks with a response in line with what I said too. I don't know how effective that would even be. It's not licensed. And they probably already have a degree in their possession. So what does the school accomplish by revoking their degree? I mean, they still earned it whether or not the school recognizes anymore or not. And that's exactly it. The skill set is still there. Alright. The last story that I want to get to comes to us from Fox News. Elon Musk congratulates SpaceX and NASA for excellent work rescuing stranded astronauts. They're home. Finally. It's been, 6 months at this point that they were trapped up there? And congratulations to SpaceX for being involved in that one too, and bridging the gap between public sector and private sector. From Madeline Coggins. Billionaire and tech titan Elon Musk shared his congratulations to SpaceX and NASA following the rescue of 2 astronauts stranded at the International Space Station for nine months. Well, thanks to the excellent work at SpaceX team working with NASA, the astronauts they're now safely home. And so congratulations to the SpaceX NASA teams on excellent work, Musk said Tuesday during an exclusive interview on Hannity. The SpaceX founder and face the Department of Government Efficiency, also offered a huge note of appreciation to Trump for prioritizing and expediting the return. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams had been on the International Space Station since June of 24. Their mission was only scheduled to last a week after the launch of Boeing's first astronaut flight. However, the spacecraft encountered technical issues, and NASA deemed it unsafe for it to arrive back to Earth with the astronauts on board. Wilmore and Williams remained stuck at the ISS for months. Wilmore, Williams, Crew 9 Commander Nick Hague, and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov made their return to Earth on Tuesday, with a splashdown off the coast of Florida just before 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So, they are home. They are safe. And they politicized it, of course. I'm not going to go back and politicize this one. Yes, I know it was something that was used in the campaign, but the important part of that is that they're all home and they're all safe. Let's do the closing. I'll do some things that I hate and some things that I like and be done for the night. For the morning. It's still morning here. It's noon for some of you people, but it's still morning here, or just about. Alright. Last week, we did, and I know we missed it because I had a hard out on Tuesday, but last week we did the 88th rule of acquisition, so this week we're going to do the 88th rule of acquisition. Yes, from 2 different beta canon sources. DS9 novella, Ferenginar, Satisfaction is Not Guaranteed, and The Poison Chalice, a full DS9 novel, both have a listed 88th rule of acquisition. We talked about it ain't over till it's over last week. This week, we talk about vengeance will cost you everything. It's kind of a policy that I've had on my own for a long time. I know I've talked about some of the things that have happened to me in my life and where people have wronged me before, and I used to be very, very fiery and vengeful and wanted to see the worst off of some of these people, and I mean, I myself did kind of grow out of it. And part of it is because every time that I did this, and your experience may not be the same as mine, but every time I went through this and did this, I didn't feel better about it. I felt empty and hollow and like a part of me wasn't restored. And I think vengeance can do that. I mean, you can obsess over the idea and put your entire life's work, treasures, and everything into the idea of trying to attain justice for what it is that you did, or you can let it go, let the world handle the other person, and you focus on rebuilding the part inside of you that you lost from whatever it is that person did to you. And I've seen people just put crazy amounts of effort and money and time into having revenge on one person. So, something to think about as you go. Vengeance will cost you everything, the 88th rule of acquisition. Let's do a couple things that I hate. Quest Fanning says, going back to the Columbia thing, stupid policy, show the paper that says this guy knows his crap, and the employer should know that you know your crap. Expulsion, okay. Remove diploma later, no. And again, yeah, you can't cut the guys open. You can't cut the guy's head open and remove the knowledge. It's there. Only alcohol has been able to take away my experience. I've still got the paper. Nice. Alright. Things that I ate. Whoever came up with this idea is probably a coomer. Leading report. Breaking: Canada could block U.S. access to Pornhub, a Canadian-owned site, if the trade war escalates, per New York Post. I know that my friend Midget B had a different idea on this one, but we're not going to go into that because this video is on YouTube. Also, I take the idea that Midget B puts out there as kind of a bunch of crap. But we're also not going to go into that. But readers did add context they thought people might want to know. This is not real. Well, it's not a real Canadian government idea. And I don't think that Pornhub itself is also trying to do this. It was proposed by an influencer who joked about it and has started a petition to ask the government to do it, which they won't because it's a private company. From the article the Post is talking about, this is the New York Post, which I have right here. Canada has a nuclear weapon in trade war. Ban Pornhub in the U.S. From Gabrielle Fahmy. Oh, Canada. Some Canucks are proposing the most drastic measure yet in the trade war with Uncle Sam. Blocking U.S. access to Canadian-owned Pornhub. The idea is the brainchild of funny man Matthew Pujitsky, who posted a now viral Instagram video suggesting the X-rated offensive, calling it Canada's nuclear weapon. Pornhub is the most visited in the US with more than 3 million views a month. That's sad. If Canada could ban Pornhub in the States, we win the trade war. That's it. There's no trade war, the Toronto stand-up comedian told the Post. A petition has since been launched urging Canadian authorities to block Pornhub as a peaceful yet powerful response to the trade dispute. It's not yet risen to the occasion, generating a few dozen signatures so far. Toronto's Marco Limpo said Canadians expect to change since his countrymen are fired up about the trade war. So, realistically, and I know that there are proclivities that I used to enjoy that I have since myself gotten rid of. and purge myself of. But I enjoyed those proclivities long enough that I actually know that other things exist. There are other sites that you can use. This is not a dominated market by any stretch of the imagination. And not only that, there are idiots with technical expertise and proclivities out there every day who can come back and make a better site if that's the way that you want to play the game. Now, I'm not advocating for any of this stuff. I think that some of the stuff should actually be throttled back, but again, government involvement is just going to make you go find another black market for it. You should be working on yourself a little bit and trying to break some of the grip of some of this stuff. But if you just outright ban it, they're just going to go somewhere else. People are horny. It's just going to happen. So, yeah, let me know how that works out for you. Other things that I hate. I read a bit of this here from my friend Bong from the Catholic Register. Christians face arbitrary arrest, grave religious freedoms violations in India. So this in and of itself is something that I definitely disagree with. Now, I can't shape Indian public policy by any stretch of the imagination, but if I could, then I definitely would try to do that. More than 160 violent attacks against Christians were reported in India this past year, as laws passed by the country's reigning Hindu nationalist government added the threat to religious freedom in the nation. According to a recent report from the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, Christians in India are facing increasingly hostile threats of violence and religious discrimination. A spokesperson for India's foreign ministry spoke out against USCIRF on Thursday, describing the U.S. agency as a biased organization with a political agenda, according to reports. We reject this malicious report, the spokesperson said, which only serves to discredit the USCIRF further. A spokesperson called the USCIRF to desist such agenda-driven efforts and to instead focus its attention on human rights issues within its own country. I will always err to the side of religious freedom. I look at this and, again, I remember the wave of anti-Islamic stuff in the early 2000s, under the Bush years, ironically enough. And I can't shape any Indian policy. I can't. There's no way for me to do so. I don't vote in that country. I don't live in that country. I don't want to live in that country. And I hope that they find the reprieve that they need to. Though Christ did say that his followers would be persecuted in this life. So, simply for believing in him. More things that I hate from the Daily Wire. Trump orders military to draw plans to retake the Panama Canal. Well, so much for diplomacy. From Ryan Saavedra. Donald Trump has reportedly ordered the U.S. military to come up with a variety of options for retaking the Panama Canal as he seeks to push communist China from operating around the canal. NPC News reported the U.S. Southern Command is spearheading the effort, which includes everything from partnering with Panamanian security forces in the U.S. Military retaking the canal by force. Officials said that whether the U.S. military is used depends solely on whether Panama complies with U.S. demands. So, we're going to go back and fight another war on foreign soil. Over transit and transport. Yeah, this isn't what I voted for. Technically, did not vote for any of it because I voted against, but Admiral Alvin Hoseley, commander of the U.S. Southern Command, presented draft strategies to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth this week, the report said. Officials said the U.S. is taking over Panama was not out of the question, but would likely only happen if an increased U.S. military presence in Panama did not achieve Trump's goal of taking back the canal that the U.S. paid for and built. But you also sold. You don't really have a leg to stand on taking it back. Now, I understand that it wasn't you directly that sold it, and it was a tremendously stupid idea to do so. But the ink is dry, long since. No matter how stupid the idea was to sell the Panama Canal, the first rule of acquisition, once you have their money, you never give it back. Deal is done. So, yeah, let's not go put boots on the ground in a sovereign nation. From the Daily Wire again, Disney scales back Snow White movie premiere following multiple controversies. Because of course it did, from Amanda Harding, which they just had another one. Actually, I want to move that one up. I want to move a couple other things around here too, by the way. Did I have this one? I did. Yeah, that goes with this one. So let's move this one over here. Disney's holding a scaled-back version of a movie premiere for the live-action version of Snow White, which is slated for release on March 21st. The movie will still have a red carpet debut, and the major stars, including Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, are expected to be there, but instead of having a full press on hand to conduct interviews, Disney's opted to have photographers and house crew only, per a report on Variety. Disney Studios did not release a statement or offer any official update on the decision, but insiders believe it has something to do with the controversy surrounding the film, including both the production itself and the controversial statements made by Ziegler. Ziegler, a vocal left-wing activist, made headlines in 23 when she made complaints about the 37 animated version of the film. She described the prince as a stalker and made it clear the live-action story she was a part of would have nothing in common with the weird original 1937 love story. Which, and again, this is... the reason this is on the thing that I hate is because Disney has now done this over and over and over again. Rather than actually spending money on an advertising budget for something, they make a controversial decision about their live-action movie, like making The Little Mermaid black. From what I understand, the actress was actually a very good singer and everything, but you make a controversial decision by race-swapping one of the characters, let the decision accidentally leak, and then all of a sudden, all your advertising is done, and everybody in the world knows about this. Instead of, paying money to get your advertising on YouTube because people don't watch TV anymore, or the beginning of commercialized Netflix or Disney Plus or anything else like that. Well, Disney Plus, I guess you wouldn't have to because you own the site, but you get where I'm going with this. Instead, they let the controversial decision leak and then just let the Reddit boards do all the talking for them. It's a horrible way to do business. I want to enjoy the art, not just sit back and listen to the people arguing back and forth over whether or not Snow White could be a Hispanic woman. I just want to watch a movie. But one from the side that I didn't expect to come from, speaking of this, is also from the Daily Wire. Total travesty. Dwarves to protest Snow White after CGI used instead of actors. That one I didn't see coming, honestly. From Katie Jerkovich. Little People actors said they would be protesting Disney Studios after they opted to use CGI for the Seven Dwarfs instead of hiring for them for the upcoming live-action remake of Snow White that hits theaters on March 21st. Speaking to the Daily Mail, actress Allie Chapman, who stands 3'8", said the whole point of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is right up there in the title. The Seven Dwarfs were the stars of the original 1937 film, which is a classic loved by millions of people. Myself included, by the way. I'm one of those millions. Disney has made a live-action film, and instead of giving 7 talented little people the chance to shine, they scrapped us completely and used CGI instead. The only thing that I would say justifying this is that the expectation, and I do agree with the dwarves that they should have been cast first, but some of the expectation from a lot of the people that enjoy the classic films include very, very caricaturized versions, hand-drawn versions of these dwarves and what they're supposed to look like. And like, you're not going to have the nose that would, by perspective, be like this long on Dopey with an actual human being. I say that still having wished that they would have actually cast real dwarves for this. Chapman's husband, Matt McCarthy, who stands 4'1", also slammed the studio and said that we've been totally shut out, but we're not going down quietly. No, we're not doing the hairy back jokes on this one. We're above that. We're not leftoids. More things that I hate. Delusional takes at Delusional Posting with a screenshot from the Amazing Atheist, who I know nothing about except for what other creators have said about him. Apparently he was a pretty popular person online years ago. Right-wingers have not demonstrated sentience, therefore it's impossible to murder them. Says the person who thinks that right-wingers are Nazis. That's all I'm going to leave with that one there. This is from Ash Shao over at The Wire. Biden admin buried study that undermined liquefied natural gas pause. Report. The information was inconvenient. Of course they had to bury it. The Biden admin buried a final draft of a study that undermined the reasoning behind its 24 pause on approvals for liquefied natural gas export projects, a new report has found. 4 sources within the Department of Energy told the Daily Caller News Foundation that the Biden admin's DOE finalized the draft of a study on September 23 that found that global emissions would see a reduction if the U.S. increased its LNG exports, but that information contradicted what the Biden admin wanted to do to appease environmentalists who argued against LNG, so the administration buried the study. It's because it's not about the greenhouse gases. It's about making sure that you can do less and have less energy. The Energy Department has learned that the former Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, and the Biden White House intentionally buried a lot of data and released a skewed study to discredit the benefits of American LNG. One source told the caller they were prioritizing their own political ambitions over the interests of the American people. And we have many such cases of stuff like this. So, I think this is supposed to be on things that I like. I'm gonna move this. Semisonic objects to the White House using their song Closing Time. You missed the point. From Mark Kennedy. The band Semisonic is pushing back at the White House for using their hit song Closing Time over a social media post that shows a shackled deportee. Yeah, that was probably in bad taste. The White House added the song in a post of a man with his wrists handcuffed to his waist as he was patted down at the airport. The video captioned with the song's lyrics, "You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here." We did not authorize or condone the White House's use of our song in any way, and no, they didn't ask. The song is about joy and the possibilities and hope. They have missed the point entirely, the power pop trio from the Twin Cities said in a statement to the Associated Press. I didn't know they were from the Twin Cities. Asked about the post Monday, the White House press secretary, bubble-headed bleach blonde, said, "Our entire government is clearly leaning into the message of the president's U.S. Customs and Border Protection," retweeted the White House's post on X with the caption, "It's closing time, we're making America safe again." Closing Time is from Semisonic's 1998 album, Feeling Strangely Fine, which peaked at 43 on the Billboard 200. The song hit number 4 on Billboard's Adult Alternative Airplay chart and earned a Grammy nomination for the Best Rock Song. Semisonic joins a long list of performers who have objected to Trump using their songs, including ABBA, Springsteen, Rihanna, Phil Collins, Pharrell, Fogerty. That actually makes a little bit of sense, that one. Neil Young also makes a lot of sense. Eddie Grant, Panic at the Disco, R.E.M., Guns N' Roses, Celine Dion, Beyonce, and Adele. And it is their song. Some of it is in the public purview, and they've sold all the rights to their song to their particular record labels, so while they can object all they want, and I respect their ability to object, because of their lust for money, they can't do anything about it. And actually about half the people on this list are in that category, because the rights to their music are at the record label and not in their own. If you still have the rights to your music, yes, object all that you want. File lawsuits for it. It's your music. If you sold it off for the promises of fame and fortune, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Two more things that I hate, and then we'll go on to things that I like. This is full-out misinformation from Insurrection Barbie, whose posts I typically enjoy otherwise, but we better, and the Democrats are also putting misinformation about this. Insurrection Barbie says we better get serious about the midterms. The Democrats are. In relation to a post, I would have missed this otherwise too, so I gotta thank Putz over in the Discord for reminding me of this. The post says, re-elect these 10 Democrat women to help us flip the House. All 10 of these women are already seated. There's no flip at that point. Now, if you targeted several other seats that are not currently held by Democrats, then yes, I would say you're serious about the midterms. But given the fact that you've chosen 10 seats that are already held by Democrats, you're not serious about flipping, you're just posturing at that point. Alright, and the last one on things that I hate. More of the boycott stuff, which I actually did just put a question in the Discord about boycotts and boycotting, because I've always been one who says if you boycott everything that politically disagrees with you, then you'll starve to death. Trust me when I say that the CEOs can take a hit, but this also got community noted because it's a full-out lie. The Political Violin says, Dear Apple, I love your products, however, if you are really pairing up with Starlink, I will find another brand. As soon as my machines die, I will find something else. Understand? Except for Apple's not partnering with Starlink. T-Mobile is. Just build a really large curb around the house. I don't know which house you're talking. Apple did not partner with Starlink. T-Mobile is providing the option on their client or to their clientele, and it's for Android devices as well, not just Apple. So this person is trying to cause a problem where there isn't even one to begin with. Goats and Scarves has joined us for the morning. All right, let's do a few things that I like. Oh, that house that they're trying to flip. Okay, I see where you're going with that. Now, normally when I do things that I like, and it involves a movie or a TV show or something, I go look for the trailer and I play it for you. I have learned throughout my time on doing this, editing and re-editing because stuff is blocked, is I can't play the trailer because this is a Netflix show, and Netflix will stop you, put you down, and end the replay of your broadcast right now if you play anything that's copyrighted by them. So instead we get to talk about it, and my hopes and my fears for some of this. But yes, we are getting Happy Gilmore 2. I'm kind of excited to see this, and I want to see where it goes. I watched the trailer. It looks like they're going to try to hold true to the original. Which the original, back when cable was still a thing and you channel surfed, and you just flipped through channels idly one day on a Sunday, it was one of those things where if you were flipping through channels mindlessly, and you heard the opening bars for Tuesday's Gone Again, you just knew, you're like, I'm going to sit down and watch this whole movie because it's great. I know that there are a few people that have passed since then, so looks like Shooter's coming back, looks like Virginia's coming back, and Adam Sandler, of course, is coming back on this one. There's not going to be any Bob Barker, unfortunately, because he has since passed. So the price really was wrong, Bob, but I want to see where it goes. I'm excited to. I don't know. Release July 25th on Netflix. So, and trust me, if it comes out and it sucks, I'm going to tell you about it. But we'll see what happens. Other things that I like. Devin Duke, who is a paid left-wing shill. We need more AOCs and Bernies and fewer Schumers and Fettermans in the Democrat Party right now. Well, if you want to lose every election from here on out, then yeah, you do. And I encourage this if you want to lose every election from here on out. Leave a blue heart below if you agree, which I did not, because this is a person who's paying, or getting paid rather, for all the blue hearts that he gets. So I'm not going to put that into his pocket, but I mean, you keep lurching out to the left and you keep losing the union part of your vote, who have all gone very, very reliably MAGA at this point. Most of the core MAGA part of this, not the I'm a Republican because my daddy was a Republican, because my grandpappy was a Republican, most of those kind of people are not in the MAGA camp. In fact, a lot of them can't stand the MAGA camp because he's not religious enough for them. The core part of the party that you hate are people who felt alienated because you thought that people like this needed to be at the front and center of your party. And until you come back and learn that, you are going to continue to lose. And I hope you understand that. Something that I think we can all agree on. JP Morgan Chase is ending political debanking. Yes, the practice of coming in and people losing their ability to do business based on something that they posted on Facebook 25 years ago is over for Chase. Now, part of this is going to be a grand advertising strategy, and I will come out and fully admit that because, well, they're going to be big in the news, and people wearing the red hats, but not the red MAC hat, the red MAGA hat, are going to be jumping in there saying, I support them because they're going to support me being able to get my bank. But it is a practice that needs to end. It really does. What you do in your off time has nothing to do with where you spend out your money. Other things that I like, Stranger Things star makes very surprising pro-family comment. From Kate Jerkovich. Millie Bobby Brown, 21 years old. Definitely got everyone's attention when she talked about how she can't wait to become a mom and start a family with husband Jake Bongiovi. During the 21-year-old actress's appearance on the Smartless podcast, the Stranger Things star said that starting a family isn't just important to her, but to Jake as well, noting that they both come from big families. People magazine reported Brown and Bongiovi tied the knot in May of 2024. My mom actually had her first child at 21. My dad was 19, Brown said. And you know, it's been my thing since before I met Jake. Since I was a baby, I told my mom I liked baby dolls. I wanted to be a mom just like the way that my mom was to me. And my nan, like my grandmother, she was a huge part of my life, she added. And so, yeah, I mean, Jake knows how important it is to me. And of course, I want to focus on really establishing myself as an actor and as a producer. But I also find it so important to start a family for me personally. It's such a huge thing. Jake was like, we cannot do that until we get married. So that was his thing. I just did some quick mental math, and her dad is like the same age as me. Which is really, really, really surprising, given the fact that, I mean, we were discouraged as kids from going off and starting a family before the age of 30, so people my age definitely were. So I'm actually kind of excited to go back and see this, and I do know that it's not for everybody. I mean, if I would have started a family at that age myself, given the turmoil of what was happening in my life at the time, I wouldn't be sitting in this beautiful house with my beautiful wife to be coming in and making sure that I don't have to have the Celsius glass on or can on screen. I wouldn't be in the wonderful position that I'm in right now if I would have followed the same route. It's a personal thing to you. When you start a family, when it's right for you, when you do it. For Millie Bobby Brown, the time is right for her. And I think that should be encouraged. Because it's right for them. They believe so, they've discussed it, they've talked about it. We cleared the 3-hour mark, holy crap. I did that again. From the Daily Wire. Most of my things I like, things I hate come from the Daily Wire today. Spin cycle. Democrats scramble for a foothold as party popularity tanks. From Virginia Cruta. For those who don't spend their Sunday mornings glued to the television and their Sunday afternoons attempting to dig through a week's worth of network and cable news media spin, the Daily Wire has compiled a short summary of what you may have missed. Sunday morning saw a lot of Democrats attempting to do damage control in the wake of Friday's continuing resolution passing, which will keep the federal government funded through September despite the vast majority of the party voting in favor of shutting down the government. The most recent NBC News poll is not likely to assuage any fears regarding the chaos within the Democrats, especially since the survey was taken days before Chuck Schumer agreed to support the CR. Democrats hit a new all-time low approval rating, with just 27% having a positive view and just 7% saying they have a very positive view of Democrats. To make matters worse, the poll also indicated that Democrat voters would prefer to see the party fighting against Trump more, fueling Democrats who oppose Schumer's decision to take back the CR. And that's a part of the problem, too, is the Democrats put themselves in a very precarious point, amplifying up the far left, because the ideologies between the Union Democrat and the progressive left are so far apart at this point that they almost can't coexist with each other. A lot of these people, if you went back to the Clinton party, pre-Hillary of course, the Bill Clinton party, yes, even the Carter party. If you went back to what the Democrat Party was pre-Obama, a lot of these people wearing the red hat right now would probably go back and join your party again. Now, with social media and with a lot of the backlash from these people, from the Trump admin, I don't know how well a lot of that would work anymore, because, I mean, we've seen the Al Gores of the world, the Bill Clintons of the world, even the Carters of the world turn heel and go side with the progressive movement. So I think a lot of them took the mask off. But if policy-wise we went back to what we saw in the 90s, in the 80s, and the 70s, I think a lot of these people in the red hats would jump back out to your party. So we'll see what happens with that. Everybody's taking off. Well, I suppose it's getting to be almost noon, too. I'm gonna hold off. I know that we did a lot more things that I hate than things that I like, but we're getting there. It's noon. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten anything yet today, except for a couple pieces of fresh mozzarella. Let's call it a day for the day. We'll get some announcements in here, and I'll make sure to put this off in the Discord again too. So let's call it out. I didn't realize we were already at the 3-hour mark. That's crazy. It just happened. Where's my outro music? All right. I'm going to go get something to eat, you guys. So thanks so much for coming in and participating in this grand experiment with us. We'll be back here. Reminder, next week that we'll be going for the afternoon commute, which means if you are on Central Time, on my time, we'll be getting started about 2 p.m. that day on Tuesday. And also on Thursday, I have a meeting with my mom on Wednesday, so we will not be streaming on Wednesday again. So we'll see what happens with that. But for now, we're out of here for the weekend. I go back to work tomorrow, so we will see you on the flip side of that. 4 on, 3 off. So come and join me on Tuesday, give or take 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as we sit down and see what happened over the weekend, over the next 4 days. I'm sure there's going to be a lot. I'm going to try not to go for 3 hours because, well, I want to be able to spend some time with the family too. So thank you so much for participating in this first part of the experiment. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Have a fantastic day. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here and then starting to determine what works best and what works worst. So, thanks again. Trust me, no more 6 p.m. stuff. I'm glad that I was here. I'm glad you guys were here. We'll see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.